I'm Jim Bradley, head on Boston Public Radio, live from Manchester, New Hampshire. Primary day is finally here. Later in the show, we'll check in with former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, but we're starting with the two top New Hampshire legislative Democrats, Donna Soucy and Matt Wilhelm. They're urging fellow Democrats to write in Joe Biden, despite what an AI-generated robocall pretending to be Joe Biden is saying.
I'm Margery Egan. Then we're catching up with an old colleague, conservative, but not too crazy, Michael Graham. NBC 10's Sue O'Connell is here with us as well. We'll take a peek into the Christmas
for one of two Republican candidates, former President Donald Trump or Nikki Haley. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports not just Republicans are voting today.
New Hampshire has an open primary system that allows the state's many unaffiliated voters to cast a ballot in either a Republican or Democratic primary. David Kopf is an independent voter who plans on voting in the GOP primary. He attended a rally in support of Nikki Haley in Salem last night.
I'm looking for someone who's, low-key, or not low-key, but, brings a sense of steadiness to the position.
Kopf says he was a lifelong Republican who voted for Trump in 2016, but in 2020 he became an independent and voted for President Biden. Kopf says if the matchup ends up being between Trump and Biden in November, he will vote for President Biden again. Ashley Lopez, NPR News.
Meanwhile, President Biden and Vice President Harris are campaigning with their spouses today in Virginia. As NPR's Asma Khalid reports, their focus will be on reproductive rights.
This rally is part of a wider effort to zero in on abortion as a major campaign issue that could galvanize Democratic voters. Yesterday, the vice president kicked off a national tour on abortion rights with a visit to Wisconsin. This week, the Biden campaign also launched a new abortion ad with firsthand testimony from a woman who could not receive an abortion in her home state of Texas. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to an abortion. Ever since then, in every instance when the issue of reproductive rights has been put directly to voters, they have chosen to protect and expand abortion access. And so Democrats are trying to make this a signature issue ahead of the 2024 elections. Asma Khalid, NPR News.
Israel says 24 soldiers have been killed, 21 of them in a single attack in southern Gaza, the deadliest one on its forces since they started their operation in the enclave after Hamas attacked Israel in early October. The military says its ground forces have now also encircled the southern city of Khan Yunis. NPR's Jeff Brumfield has more.
The Israeli military has said in the near term that they actually expect fighting in Khan Yunis to intensify as they try and reach their goal of eradicating Hamas and freeing the hostages taken on October 7th. But this military campaign is facing increasing pressure from within Israel. And a lot of that pressure is coming from the hostages' families. They want another ceasefire that will allow their loved ones to go free. And families are starting to apply real pressure to the government.
NPR's Jeff Brumfield reporting. Wall Street is trading in mixed territory. The Dow is down 149 points. The Nasdaq up 12. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Harvard University has made a move to have the class action lawsuit over the mishandling of medical remains dismissed. According to the Crimson, the move to dismiss the lawsuit happened on Friday, with the university claiming immunity from legal action in 9 cases alleging negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit was brought by families affected by the mishandling of human remains at Harvard Medical School. And it may be 40 degrees in Boston right now, but that was not the case a few days ago. Frigid temperatures over the past week have made life especially hard for people dealing with homelessness. And with the Massachusetts shelter system at capacity, roughly 600 families are stuck right now on a waiting list. About half those families are living in overflow sites while they wait for something more permanent. Kelly Turley with the Mass Coalition for the Homeless says she's worried about the other half.
That means that there are several hundred families that are likely staying in places not meant for human habitation.
Advocates say that outreach teams are trying to get people dealing with homelessness indoors amid the freezing weather. They say that anyone who sees someone struggling in the cold should call 911. In the forecast, sun, clouds, maybe some light snow this afternoon. High today about 40 degrees, clouds low 30s overnight. And rain arrives tomorrow, high in the upper 30s. That rain will hang around on Friday and Saturday as well, but highs about 50 each of those days. We're at 40 degrees right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Kresge Foundation. Established 100 years ago, the Kresge Foundation works to expand equity and opportunity in cities across America. A century of impact, a future of opportunity. More at kresge.org.
Eastern Browdy, I am Margery Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting for one more day up here from Manchester, New Hampshire, the Doubletree for primary day today. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and if you go to youtube.com/GBH News, you will see our Boston Public Radio New Hampshire survival tips video, which is basically my banging into the glass studio wall over and over and over
surviving.
again.
So
surviving.
it's fine.
I did. I survived, Jim. Good morning.
And to you. So there are a ton of great voices on the show today. Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary for Joe Biden. Michael Graham, who's sitting over there, who used to be our colleague. I use the term very loosely when we were on another radio station. New Hampshire heartthrob John Davidson is actually going to sing a voting song from somewhere in Mexico. Performance candidates Vermin Supreme, Paperboy Prince, CNN's John King, NPR's Tamara Keith, and a ton of other people, so stick around. We're joined now by Donna Soucy, who's Democratic Minority Leader of the New Hampshire Senate and wearing her Biden-Harris sweatshirt, I should say. Nice to see you, Senator. Matt Wilhelm is the Democratic Minority Leader of the New Hampshire House. They're both involved in the effort to write in Joe Biden on the New Hampshire primary ballot. Welcome to both of you. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. So, Senator Soucy, how's it going with the write-in so far?
You know, there's a lot of excitement. What's been so much fun about the write-in campaign is that it truly is grassroots. We have Zoom meetings and make some plans. We had this past Saturday a number of visibilities scheduled. We probably had double that because organically people just are excited and want to show their support for President Biden.
So, Representative, are you in a tough spot? I'm assuming, I didn't look this up, that both of you trashed the DNC when they decided that the Democratic primary was the first would not be New Hampshire. In fact, we had a Congressman, Pappas, here yesterday, who said something like a total disgrace. And the guy who is behind the, quote, total disgrace is the guy you're urging constituents to vote for. How do you reconcile that sort of disconnect thing?
Well, I don't agree with every single candidate I vote for 100% of the time. And we fundamentally disagree on New Hampshire's place in the nominating calendar. But on balance, I think the president's done a really great job, deserves a second term, and we are determined to make sure he gets off to a strong start here in New Hampshire.
You know, you're both Democrats, but obviously one of the things that people on the other side are concerned about is that this could be, if former President Trump does really, really well today, this could be it on the Republican side, and it's Iowa and New Hampshire. So to some, that seems a little bit not the way it should be.
Well, I think part of the issue, obviously all of the candidates were here campaigning in New Hampshire early on, and up until Iowa, a couple had dropped out. I really think the opportunity was Nikki Haley's to seize and to create energy with independent voters. And I think if Trump does win the primary today, I think that's the Haley campaign that really, missed the ball here and didn't, in fact, generate the kind of enthusiasm and energy to continue this contest down the road.
Representative Wilhelm, we had the people from, what was it called? Pivot, primary pivot,
right.
Whatever the hell it's called, who are urging undeclared people to vote, even if they lean Democratic, vote in the Republican primary. Obviously, you know this, for Nikki Haley in an attempt to stop Donald Trump. We get a lot of people calling. Obviously, that's anecdotal. What's your sense of whether or not that's working, except on the margins? And how do you feel about it, too?
I mean, I think it is on the margins. I don't know that it is a widely publicized campaign, also very much a grassroots operation. I think for us, the choice is really clear. We've got a president in Joe Biden who has beat Donald Trump once, has surprised people every step of the way, including winning in the midterm elections, and feel really confident about our prospects in 2024.
How about the ceasefire write-in as well? We haven't talked much about that here, but there is an effort. I don't know how serious. Well, I know it's serious. I don't know how widespread it is to write in ceasefire basically, obviously, to make a point about what's happening in Gaza. Is that gaining any traction as far as you can tell?
I've heard a few people talking about it on social media, but not, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And it'll also be interesting to see how it's reported at the end of the night. I'm not sure that we're going to have a full tally of the number of people that wrote in ceasefire. I think we'll know the number of people that wrote in, a name, but writing in a word that isn't a candidate. I don't know what kind of results we're going to get.
We're talking to the minority leaders, Democrats, of the state Senate here, Donna Soucy, and of the state House, Matt Wilhelm.
Well, let's talk about these AI fake Biden robocalls. Apparently some residents recorded the call, and gave it to NBC News. Here is the sound of what they heard.
We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. If you would like to be removed from future calls, please press 2 now.
By the way, it sounds exactly like Biden. I hadn't heard it
Sounds
until
like
just now.
a very sleepy, low energy Biden. It sounds like he needed some caffeine there. But in any case, I mean, some people might have been fooled by these calls, Senator.
And I think that's absolutely frightening, and I think that's truly voter suppression. I'm glad that a complaint was filed immediately. I think the Attorney General's office is taking this very seriously, as they should all complaints. I think, unfortunately, with the advent of AI, things like this are likely to happen. Misinformation is likely to be spread. But we here in the state, I think, have an obligation to make sure that we get to the bottom of it, that we prevent it, and that we prosecute anyone that would try to suppress and provide misinformation to voters.
Do you know any more than we do from just reading the papers about who's behind this thing, Representative? No?
No.
I mean, this is really frightening kind of stuff. It's frightening in a primary. It's particularly frightening when you get to November and there's no time to respond or correct the record. The deep fake stuff is really horrible.
Or how widespread it was. Do we know any of that?
I heard it's somewhere between 5,000 calls and 25,000
wow.
calls, but that's a pretty big range.
Yeah,
so.
that is a pretty big range.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about, speaking of Biden sounding a little tired in the thing, are either of you concerned, you have to raise your right hand and tell the truth here, either of you concerned about Biden's age, starting with you, Representative?
I'm not. I think he's got the experience. He's surrounded himself with a really talented team. And I have full faith and confidence in his abilities.
You're going to raise your right hand? This guy didn't raise his hand. You're going to raise your right hand and say it?
Sure. I'd be happy to say that I have.
The senator's hand is raised, yes.
That I have confidence in the president. I think his record is extraordinary. I think he's one of the most accomplished presidents in a lifetime, and I think he's capable of doing the job. Right now, he's doing it on many fronts, dealing with a myriad of issues, and I think he should be reelected to continue that work.
Speaking of myriad of issues, can we bring up something that we're obsessed with on the radio when we're in Massachusetts? So our state legislature, the average salary is $100,000. You guys make $100, right?
Correct.
Okay, $100,000, $100. Our legislature in an odd year, yes, takes off 7 weeks for Christmas and then takes off a mere 5 months in an election year. He has the right face for this, by the way. So we'll start with you, Representative.
Hold on.
How do you feel about
what? You forgot.
What?
We're the least
effective legislature
in the United States of America.
So let me repeat this
We can't seem to get anything passed.
$100,000, 5 months vacation, $100. When do you guys work for $100?
We're in session from January until the middle of June this year. And, I think there are so many differences between the Massachusetts legislature and the New Hampshire. One of them is every legislator, all 424 of us in the House and the Senate.
400 in the House, 24 in the Senate.
That's right. We can introduce as much legislation as we want. Every single bill gets a public hearing. Every bill gets a recommendation out of committee. And every bill gets a vote on the floor of our respective chambers.
That is fabulous.
Wow. Wow.
Nothing gets a vote in our legislature. Do you get an extra bonus because you're leaders, by the way?
Yeah, we understand. An extra $25.
We don't as leaders, but once we get to be elected actual leaders of the chamber, Senate President and Speaker, then we'll get an extra $25
there
a year.
$25.
That makes all the difference.
And we get paid up front for the 2 years, so it's a $250 check if you're presiding over the chamber.
Are you okay with that? I mean, every time we've talked to legislators in the past years we've been here, people sort of take pride in the fact, but it basically means, unless you're loaded, and I don't know what your financial situation is, same for the other 422, that you really have to be like sort of mixing your attention. You got to be worried about making money at the same time you're serving the people. Is that a problem, Senator?
Well, I think many of us have to juggle careers, work, weekends or nights and try to manage. I do think it skews membership a bit to those who either have someone, a spouse or partner that helps them with their cost of living. But for the most part, I think what it brings are people who are truly devoted to trying to make a difference.
Right.
And that, I think, speaks to just the civic engagement in our state. I mean, the fact that we've got essentially a glorified town hall in Concord where folks come in from all across the state to advocate for their communities. It's like serving on a board of directors. It's like, volunteering in your community. It's, we have a lot of philanthropy in the state of New Hampshire. It's how we get things done. And, it translates to the New Hampshire primary as well, where people just take our elections really seriously. Every 2 years, we're all up for re-election, not just Donna and me, but also the governor. And it just makes for, I think, a culture of civic participation that's really robust.
So you wouldn't want $100,000 in a 5-month vacation? Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
No. I think it would change things a lot. But as the senator said, it does skew our membership in a few different ways, including, it's the oldest median age of any legislature in the country.
Oh, I didn't know
Is
that.
it? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Hey,
so a lot of people have retired, in
That's
other
right.
words.
That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
We really appreciate your time. Good luck with your work today on the write-in campaign. It's great to meet you both. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you both for coming in. We've been speaking with Donna Soucy and Matt Wilhelm of the New Hampshire State Legislature. Donna is a Democratic minority leader of the New Hampshire Senate, and Matt is the New Hampshire House Democratic leader. Donna Soucy and Matt Wilhelm, thanks again for your time.
Thanks to you both. It's great.
Coming up, Michael Graham.
Who?
Michael Graham. He is our old radio show buddy, and he's a conservative media personality and the publisher managing editor of Inside Sources. We're going to talk to Michael Graham. Up next, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, and we are broadcasting live from Manchester, New Hampshire for the New Hampshire primary.
Why don't you say that?
GBH is All Things Considered with Arun Roth.
Community activists at the local level. They're always the best people to talk to.
A wrap-up of all the day's news with interviews and stories on what's happening around Boston.
And once we start talking to them, they tell us other people to talk to. It is eternally rewarding as a journalist to try to find people at the most local level, because that's where we get our best voices and the best news for our community.
On GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Comcast, offering the Xfinity 10G network, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. Xfinity.com. And Brown University pre-college programs, where high school students experience college life, nurture their diverse interests, and make friends and memories that last a lifetime. You can apply online at precollege.brown.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browder are broadcasting live from the Manchester Doubletree for the New Hampshire primary today. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And if you go to youtube.com/GBH News, you will see Margery crash into a glass wall, which apparently has caused a lot of happiness and a lot. She's not hurt, so don't worry about that.
That's right.
We're joined now by someone who describes himself as conservative but not crazy. I would dispute that. He is Michael Graham. He is a political.
Yeah, Michael Graham.
Boy, does that bring back
no
scary
kidding.
Yeah.
Scary
Oh,
memories.
do that again.
Wait. No, don't do it again.
Don't
He's
do
the
it.
political editor for the New Hampshire Journal,
Yes.
and his publisher, managing editor of Inside
Inside
Sources.
Yes.
And nothing has changed.
It is
and,
sad.
And
It
the
is changed.
Paleolithic era, he was a host on our old defunct
yeah.
station,
Yep.
WTK.
Okay, do the beginning.
No, don't.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Graham. Michael Graham.
Okay,
We
It
love
is hilarious.
that. We love that. We
It
love
is-
that.
No, it is absolutely great. And I have fallen as low as you can fall.
You have?
I thought working with Jim and Margery and talk radio was the bot. I thought that's not the bot. No, I'm now a journalist. And it is
Wow.
sad.
There you are.
It is just
It is
sad,
sad.
doing it every day. So there's nothing left. I lost my job playing the piano at the Bordello. So that's pretty much
But
what
I
I got here. I'm
understand-
in beautiful New Hampshire.
You're
and
blackballed. You're blackballed by
yes,
certain
yes,
elements
no,
of
that
the
was
media.
hilarious.
Yep.
Wonderful. The state Democratic Party and the leaders in the legislature have ordered the elected officials do not talk to New Hampshire Journal or Michael Graham. Do not speak. They actually
don't
published
talk
a
to you?
letter. We actually ran the letter that they sent out saying don't talk to them.
What's the problem?
Federal. Well, I'm just as popular in New Hampshire as I was in Boston. That's what's working out. But,
Well, I would support that choice.
Exactly. It's a very smart
Thank
move
you.
not talking to me, but we definitely know what's going on with the New Hampshire primary. I do have that.
So hold on for 1 second. So you must
Sure.
have done something, Michael. What'd you do?
No, it's been that
What'd
since
you
I
get
got
him?
it.
What'd you get him? Why'd you get
Well,
him? Why are you blackballed?
where do you start? I mean, we cover. So I have this trick. I've discovered my trick for journalism. The way to get people to really hate you. Quote them accurately.
Oh, okay.
They will never
That
forgive
is
you
always a
again.
problem.
Can I tell
Yeah.
you seriously just a quick story about how politics works?
Please.
So like my first week up here running New Hampshire Journal, I'm watching the local TV station. They have a report: 16 people sickened and 1 dead after food poisoning or whatever at a local food hall. I'm like, I'm not a journalist or nothing, but don't you usually say the name of the place? What's a local food hall? So my first breaking story for Hampshire Journal is I took 4 minutes and found out that it was the Puritan back room owned by Congressman Chris Pappas where it had happened. And so we just published the fact, and it was a huge concert. You're a hate monger. I'm like, I just reported where it happened, and that's how small state politics works. Everyone knows each other. No one wants to step on anyone's feet. Well, everyone hates me already, so I don't care. So I just write.
Well, so nothing
what
has
happened.
changed,
Exactly.
essentially.
Well,
exactly.
hold on. He's just as caffeinated as ever.
But I
Is
don't
he
drink
not?
coffee.
You know,
I
I
don't
remember
drink
you.
coffee.
I remember way back when being out
I
in
brought
Denver.
you guys donuts.
Yeah, you brought
And I
donuts.
had to get a stupid small coffee for Browdy because I don't want the styrofoam. We're going to save
Yeah.
the world.
That's exactly right.
But you gave me a ride once, or I gave you a ride. We were out in Denver when
Oh,
at
yes,
the
yes, the
convention.
convention.
And I by 15 minutes in the car with you, first of all, you got in a fight with everybody. You got in a fight with the guy in the parking lot. You got in a fight with the homeless guy in the corner. You got in a fight with the other guy. And I think we were fighting about late birth abortion. By the time we got to the convention, it was like exhausting. I was
That
exhausted.
is Michael
Sort of like
Graham
this.
exhausting.
Sort of like this,
Exhausting,
yes.
right.
Does Haley have a
Okay.
chance?
Looking at the data, no. I mean, so I think two significant things have happened. One is the Suffolk polling. You guys know Dave Paleologos, just a smart guy, and he's not in the tank for anybody. And when his tracking poll has Trump going from 50 to 60 over the course of the past 10 days, even if the number isn't right, the direction, you can sense that direction. And I've been out. I was just out this morning with Governor Sununu and Nikki Haley, and I was out watching the local Republican who's going to run for governor, Chuck Morse, who's endorsed Trump. He actually made a media event out of going to vote for Trump because he thinks that's the path. You could see the energy kind of trending towards Trump and the fade with Haley. So here are my big predictions that you can mock me for.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Prediction number one, Secretary of State Dave Scanlon says 322,000 turnout for the Republicans, which will be huge. The biggest before this was like 289. Sununu says 350,000, and if that happens, you've got so many undeclared non-Republicans in the Republican primary, Haley can win. I predict 300,000 maybe. So that's my first bold prediction, low turnout, unexpectedly low.
What's your second bold
turnout.
prediction?
My second bold prediction, Donald Trump is going to get a higher percentage in his primary than Joe Biden gets in his. And that is going to be wow. And we've already got the headline written at nhjournal.com. Trump beats Biden in New Hampshire.
Well, except Biden's not really running. He's
Yeah,
sort of half-assed
but he's also the
running
incumbent
as
president.
a write-in.
He's running against Dean Phillips. Oh my God! By the way, Dean Phillips is one of those wonderful candidates that the more he campaigns, the lower his vote total goes. I mean, on paper he's great. In real life, not so
We
much.
had him on. I thought he did a great job.
I thought he was really
yesterday.
He's a smart guy, but when you watch him campaign, like people, like Mitt
Okay.
Romney, smart guy. Everywhere Mitt Romney went, his polls went down.
So why do you think? Why do you think that there's going to be a lower turnout? I mean, the vibe hasn't been the same up here. It's very kind of
Let's just start with
lackluster.
here in the DoubleTree. I've been coming here since 2000 when I was a talk show host and I came up to cover it. And you could not move around here, and you'd run into reporters you only see once every 4 years. The place is empty. I parked at the door. That never happens, and that's part of the deal. Part of the other reason for the turnout slip, I think, is Iowa took the air out of some of the sails of some of the people who are hoping for some magic in New Hampshire. And if there's not going to be magic, you've got those casual voters who are not sure they want to vote. Then because in the last 72 hours, and I don't know how she avoids this, it's really turned into a never Trump or I hate Trump versus Trump fight, as opposed to what DeSantis and Haley were working for so hard, which is look, populism is part of the Republican coalition, just like on the left, progressivism is part of their coalition. You got to have the AOCs on your side. You got to have the populists on our side. Let's work together. And Trump's fight is, no, I'm the only path. I'm the only path. Well, now they've diverted from let's be a different path to I hate him. And once you start telling Republicans I hate him, here are the 3 magic words that WGBH listeners will never grasp, and I understand why. This is what the media's missed. This is why our coverage has been so much better. Republicans like Trump. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe he's Satan incarnate. That's a separate issue. I'm not saying they should like him. I'm just saying they do. State to state, county to county, Republicans, they like Donald Trump.
No, can I say it? You're going to be shocked when I almost agree with you. No, I'm serious.
I'm changing my opinion immediately. I was wrong.
That he has only been indicted for 91 felonies.
Exactly.
That he's been found liable for sexual abuse and
Once.
fraud. I mean, really? Who isn't?
Well,
What
exactly.
kind
Who
of
hasn't?
isn't?
Who hasn't done that?
So let me. When you hear one of my obsessions from this week here is when I first heard both Haley and Sununu. Sununu very critical of Trump.
Right.
Haley sort of half-assed critical of Trump. Both say that if Trump's the nominee, they vote for him. Doesn't that totally undercut the whole deal?
So this is crazy because, see, I remember a guy named Barack Obama and a guy named Hillary Clinton, and they were fighting each other, and he's unfit, and he doesn't have the experience, and he's going to risk America having this kid who's got 5 minutes. We can't have him as president. Who you endorse? Well, he's the nominee. I'm endorsing him. It's amazing. 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders comes to New Hampshire. He got more votes at a single diner than Joe Biden got in the entire state.
Well,
and then what happens?
Pointed out.
Biden's my guy. This is party politics. The most powerful force in American politics today is negative partisanship. I don't care as much about me winning as I do about you losing. It is a bunch of political suicide vest wearers out there. All they want to do is make sure the other guy gets blown up. And so that's where we are. And that's why every Republican is going to endorse Trump and every Democrat's going to endorse. Look, we all know Biden is not able to do the job physically. Separate from his politics or he's a nice guy or whatever, we know he's not. Your Democrats are sticking with him. They know it's BS.
No, you're totally right, but Nancy Pelosi can clearly do the job. Would you agree? I mean,
That's
really.
right.
I mean, we're going to talk more about this.
I'm with the youth movement. I'm with Senator McConnell. I'm with the youth movement.
Yeah.
By the way, I also love Nikki Haley saying, we can't have a couple of 80-year-olds in government. Yeah, we're from South Carolina, the home of Strom Thurmond. We need a 100-year-old.
I like that.
By the way, I was the
where are
last
you
Republican
from?
strategist to run a primary against Strom Thurmond and live to tell the tale.
Is that true?
That is
Aren't you
true.
from South
Absolutely true.
Carolina?
1996. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
That's where I ran campaigns.
So how come she's so unpopular in South
She's not
Carolina?
unpopular. This is the other thing that people are missing. They think because it's a political fight, everyone hates everybody.
Yep.
Trump voters like DeSantis. They're like, fine. Yeah, they liked Haley until it got personal. You know what I mean? But like 4 months ago, when you looked at the approves, disapproves, you have a bunch of people, Tim Scott, who, DeSantis, et cetera, in 2012, if any one of them had gotten in a time machine and come back, the Republicans would have cheered. Oh my God, thank you. They would have been better than all the. Remember, they had Pizza Guy running and Newt Gingrich and whatever. They're all fine Republicans. It's just Trump is his own gravitational field, and he warps all the fields. And so it's not that they hate Nikki Haley in South Carolina. They like her.
Who
They
do you
just
vote
love
for in
Trump.
November if it's Trump and Biden?
Me?
I believe you, yes.
Yes. I have never voted for Donald Trump in my life. I never will, but I can't vote to put a senile guy who's waiting for pudding hour to come on. So I'll be voting Libertarian again, I'm sure, something like that. But look, as I tell Republicans who they're like, man, how can you not support the nominee? It's not my job to like who you give me. It's your job to give me someone I like. And the same with Democrats. I'm embarrassed that the Democratic Party is going to send this guy back who everyone knows is unfit. It's embarrassing to watch. You know he's unfit.
Who's
Look,
a more accomplished
Republicans
president
are crazy.
in his first 4 years? Who's a more accomplished president in your lifetime, Michael Graham?
Ronald Reagan, easy. That's an easy one. But George W. Bush, because George W. Bush stopped the war of crazy radical murder and turned it around.
Well, he started a war too. So,
yeah, to
what are
stop
your
the other
fondest,
war.
What are your fondest
Kind of
memories?
like Israel and Hamas.
What are your fondest
Israel
memories
shots.
of me
Israel
and
shoots
Margery?
people, because they're.
What are your fondest memories of the two of us?
Well, I can't talk about Margery's because I have the restraining order. But with. I'm kidding. I never touched Margery inappropriately. Now, Browdy, I'm telling you, he has a fine little tush. He
Thank
really
you.
does.
I didn't think you'd admit that.
By the way, can I just say something? For people who don't know, Jay Severin passed away,
I know.
It's just a bummer. I get asked about him still all the time.
He's our colleague in the afternoon.
He was a colleague, exactly. And, a lot of, he didn't do my style of conservatism. We didn't agree on a lot of issues and stuff, but just, he started a revolution in talk that broke Boston open, and you had a golden era of talk that even included the magnificent Margery Egan and what's his name show.
Exactly.
It was
that's right.
absolutely great radio, and they were the glory days. And if the industry weren't what it is, I'd still be doing talk radio, but you can't be me and do talk radio.
Well, thank God the industry is what it is, so that we're doing talk radio.
I'll
There's
tell
one
you,
glimmer of good news.
my fondest memory of you, you're such a polite Southern gentleman. I remember we were in the hotel, and a little note slipped under my door to ask me when I would be ready to drive to the convention. And I thought that was
Don't you remember from the airport in Denver, he's not only carrying your bags,
he's carrying yours.
carrying my bags. That is honest to God true.
Sucker and chump, I think, is the phrase you're looking for.
No.
Michael Graham, it's wonderful to see you.
Please talk to your Democratic friends. I promise I will quote them accurately.
I think that'll be fine.
Please
New Hampshire Journal.
NHJournal.com. It's where all the political news. All we do is politics. I tell people all the time, if Politico was broke, run by one person, and not very good at their jobs, they would be New Hampshire Journal.
Nice to see you. Be well. Michael Graham, our former colleague.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. I'm glad everything's good with the family.
Now.
We have been speaking with Michael Graham, a political editor for New Hampshire Journal and publisher and managing editor of Inside Sources. Yes, that's correct. I just want to make sure I didn't move that up. Okay, Michael, thank you very much. And now we're going to speak with a woman who may or may not have been attacked by a coyote on her way up here, because she's always being attacked by coyotes. I don't know what's up with that. And anyway, that would be our local woman and media maven, Sue O'Connell, co-host of NBC Boston's At Issue, airing every Sunday, 11:30. Meet the Press. Hello, Sue O'Connell.
Good day.
Wait a second. And she hosts every night while here, live editions of At Issue, 7:30 on NBC 10.
Yes.
I was going to be on last night. I'm a little sick. I couldn't go. I feel really bad about it.
Yep.
And she's been reporting live from
I kept calling
Hampshire.
your room all night and hanging up. That was me.
That was the problem.
So, Sue O'Connell, have you been attacked by any coyotes?
I have not. Since I'm up in New Hampshire, I haven't had any wildlife encounters. As
That's
opposed
wonderful.
to my time in Roxbury, where it's always no coyotes up here.
How would you describe the scene? The most common article in all the papers is "It ain't what it used to be."
Oh gosh.
How would you describe it?
Well, I got street parking. I mean, it's an amazing flatness of what's going on. Even the candidates, not so many candidates are out there. Out on the street, there's not as much activity, even though Elm Street has a ton more restaurants and great
Elm
things.
Street's the main drag right outside
it looks
the hotel,
really like it's come a long way in 4 years.
It's a great main drag.
It's great. There's nobody, the usual people there, people who live here, but there's no excitement.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, there's no Democratic primary to speak of.
But a week or so ago, there was a Republican primary, which most people thought was narrowing, and that didn't seem to excite a lot of people.
I mean, Trump is not here in the same way that he was. So the main leading candidate is not here. They're not having as many yard parties because of however the Republican parties are running. And I might offer, part of it is too. I've heard from New Hampshire voters that say, because of social media, because of the internet, because of web reporting, because of 24/7, they know a lot about the candidates before the primary season. So as much as certainly they love New Hampshire to get out into the retail politics, they already know a lot. So it's not really the same excitement that's happening.
Can you describe the conversation you had about your thing with Donald Trump? Was that New Hampshire?
Yeah, that was in Exeter.
Describe what your conversation with Trump was. This is 2016.
2016, before he was the nominee, went to the Exeter Town Hall where I think Abe Lincoln had given his Republican acceptance speech, I think. And I know a historian will correct me. And I asked then candidate Donald Trump if the LGBTQ community could count on progress under President Trump, and he said, you have your thing, I got my thing, and the answer is yes. And that became a robocall that Ted Cruz used, but obviously it didn't hurt him, and he didn't do it. So there you go.
Yeah, it's just we were talking about before about all the talk, and Michael Graham was talking about it too, about President Biden being unfit. We should play you a little sound here. We've been talking about this before with Donald Trump and his problems with mixing people up, Haley and Speaker Pelosi.
Yeah.
So you're going to hear the clip. Which one are we playing? The one of the one of Trump speaking at a rally in New Hampshire. This is Friday, confusing Nikki Haley with former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi while talking about the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Then you're going to hear Haley's response.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that.
I'm not saying anything derogatory, but when you're dealing with the pressures of a presidency, we can't have someone else that we question whether they're mentally fit to do this.
There's a great piece in the New Republic that basically says we are obsessed with whether or not Joe Biden is too old to do the job, and we almost never talk about whether or not Trump is too old, cognitively weak to do the job. I think that's accurate, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do, and I think that everybody needs to take an objective sort of look at this. Joe Biden is much healthier than I am. He goes bike riding. I don't do anything. I fell 3 times last year. He fell 3 times last year. I'm only 62. So, when it comes to physical fitness, I think Joe Biden is a very healthy old man. There's no doubt about that. And some of the mistakes that Joe Biden makes, he's been making for 80 years, right? We've been listening to Joe Biden misspeak and confuse things for 80 years. Joe Biden also, to your point earlier with Michael Graham, Jim, has a very successful presidency and has a very successful staff around him that if you vote for Joe Biden and vote for the Democrats, you're going to get that. Now, Donald Trump is not the picture of health. He does not look great. The things that he's confusing, it's not like he's misspeaking. It's not like he gets a little bit confused. Certainly all of us understand when you're speaking extemporaneously without a teleprompter, which he does often. You make mistakes. We all do it. But at the same time, he is still thinking that Nikki Haley was at Congress.
Or that he was running against Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
That's
There's
a
tons
frequent
of them.
one. That's so odd.
Or just the word salad. These complaints about Vice President Kamala Harris and her word salad. He's talking about getting rid of banks. And there's no challenge.
Debanking.
Debanking.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
And then I would say, look at the amount of turnover that Donald Trump had in his administration when he was president compared to Joe Biden's turnover. So, if we agree that, if you want to say that both these things are equal, what comes with them? Who comes with them if you elect them? But I think it's time that we really, and in the media, it's been a really tough spot to be in because on one hand, people say you play everything he says, every tweet that Trump tweets you think is news. On the other hand, if we don't play everything that he says, people don't understand what the gibberish is that he said.
For me, the takeaway of the New Republic is that the conservative media is much better at ridiculing relentlessly Biden every time. People I know that watch this stuff and absorb this stuff are always talking about Biden did this, Biden did that, Biden did the other thing, and we're not talking endlessly about the missteps of Donald Trump. I don't know why that is, but they also argued in that piece that the conservative media is taking over the country and that in 15 years all we could be left with is the New York Times and a couple of networks.
We'll see. But I think it will change. I think if Nikki Haley gets out of the race, I don't think Trump's ever going to get out of the race, just to be clear. But if Trump becomes the main target for Joe Biden, I think that's all going to change, especially with the PACs. They'll just be airing it like crazy.
It was Chuck Todd who said to us yesterday he thought that Nikki Haley would not get out of the race regardless because someday there may be great concern if he's convicted of some of these felonies that X percent, 5-10% who said they won't vote for him have to go somewhere else. But on the same hand, maybe we should be asking Andy Smith this in a couple of minutes, but it seems to me if you go home after all this glory that was supposedly going to be visited on you, you lose New Hampshire and you get crushed in your home state. I think she's 29 points behind or something like that in South Carolina. That's pretty hard to get your act together again in 2 years or 4 years or whatever, isn't it?
I don't think so. This is just such a bizarre campaign season because of Trump. It's just completely crazy. And, we have to keep remembering that 50% of Republicans do not want Donald Trump. I think that's a really firm number, as much as maybe 30% definitely want.
I don't know if that's true, Sue.
You don't think so?
The fact that they didn't vote for him doesn't mean they're not. Haley and Sununu said they're going to vote for Trump if he's the nominee.
Right, but
just because they voted for Haley and DeSantis doesn't mean they flipped to Trump.
No. But if he gets weak, if they think they can win, remember the power dynamics of running for office. If someone thinks they can beat you, suddenly things change. So I think that if Trump becomes beatable in some way, or that, I don't know what the future of the Republican Party is after this, but
am I going to get you in trouble if I say, I wasn't feeling great last night, so I got takeout dinner, and you're sitting at the bar with Margery, Azine, and others? No. Before
I went to several bars last night.
You had a beer.
Yeah.
Right before your show.
Yeah.
Am I going to get you in trouble?
No. Well,
how do you? Well, it's
too late now.
How do you do that?
Well, I'm much younger than you, Jim.
Okay.
So that's number one. You were doing shots at NyQuil with a chase of water.
Actually,
that was.
to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's just I've
Most
eaten all
people
day.
can drink a beer
Before
without
they
getting
work?
a buzz on.
Can you drink it before you
It
do
was
a
a
show?
light beer.
If I've had something to eat, I can. You just are unbelievable. I mean, look at the size of him. He has 3 sips and he's sauced.
What's your point?
Well, there's something wrong there, Jim. I don't mean to be critical,
No,
but
it's a light,
that's
there's
unusual.
like 2 drops of alcohol. I've been drinking light beer since I was 6.
Are you doing a show tonight? or
Yes,
not?
I am. I'm going to
You
be
wanna
on
tell us
all
anything?
day long.
Yeah.
I'm on at 2 o'clock on NBC 10 Boston. I'm on at 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11, and then tomorrow morning. So
my God.
That's very impressive.
You're in your
I'm going to
keep.
go to the bar right now.
Sue, it's great to see
Great
you.
to see you.
Yeah, you make
Be
it sound
well.
like she was drinking shots there. She was having
No, I
half
said
of
what
a
she
beer.
had. She wasn't having half
A
of
light
beer.
beer.
A
She had
light
a
beer.
light
Okay,
beer.
that's right. It's very low alcohol content in most beers. Anyway, we've been speaking with Sue O'Connell, and good for you having a light beer. Hope you don't get attacked by any coyotes between here
Thank
and
you.
the parking lot. Sue O'Connell is co-host of NBC 10 Boston's At Issue, airing every Sunday at 11:30, following Meet the Press, and she hosts every night. There's going to be a lot of them tonight. Live editions of At Issue at 7:30. What'd you say? 7:30? What's the
2,
schedule?
4,
We're just on
7:30,
all day.
11,
All
whatever.
All
So-
day.
NBC
Okay.
10.
Don't have to
And
go through this again.
NBC 10. Thank you, Sue O'Connell, very much, our media maven. Coming up, Andy Smith, director of the UNH Survey Center and associate professor of political science. He's going to tell us a lot about polling because he's an expert at it. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from Manchester, New Hampshire, because today is the New Hampshire primary.
The world takes you outside your borders and connects you with the most important events happening all across this big blue marble.
We introduce you to memorable people whose stories will stay with you for a lifetime. I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler, global news and inspiring voices that will keep you on top of the world.
Listen each weekday.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and BioNova Scientific, a biologics CDMO providing development and GMP manufacturing services to small and mid-sized biopharmaceutical companies. BioNova Scientific, where concept becomes cure. BioNovaScientific.org. And Central Square Theater, presenting Machine Learning, a new play about a young Colombian scientist who develops an artificial intelligence nursing app to care for his ailing father. Begins January 25th. CentralSquareTheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browdy. We're broadcasting live our last day here on Primary Day in Manchester at the Doubletree Hotel. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And as a lot of you know, if you go to youtube.com/GBH News, you will see Margery with survival tips, including how you survive banging into one of the glass windows here at the studio. We're joined, by the way, we're going to take your calls in a couple of minutes, your thoughts on Primary Day at 877-301-8970. So if you want to line up now, we'll get to you in a few minutes. But first, we're joined by the director of the University of New Hampshire Survey Center, Andrew Smith. Andy, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's always a pleasure. It wouldn't be primary weekend if I
That's
didn't
right.
see
That's
you
great.
guys.
Same with you.
So Andy Smith, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. Oh, polls, snapshot in time. They're never right. Tell people. I mean, they're pretty accurate. Your polls, other people's polls, pretty accurate most of the time.
Usually, but primaries are really kind of quirky because you don't have the party label behind the candidates, and there's really not many differences between the candidates on policy issues. So you come down to those personality quirks and so forth, and who's more electable, who would you want to have a beer with. And those usually are decided when people really start to pay attention, which is at the end of the election. And we see in exit polls that in the primary, upwards of 45% say they make up their mind in the last 3 days, and 15% or so make up their mind on election day. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen, doesn't always, but can happen in a primary that don't really impact in a general election.
What about the argument that young people don't answer their phones? That everybody's got a cell phone now.
Nobody answers their phone. It's not just young people. I mean, response rates in national surveys, the big organizations are down to 5%. So 95 households, if you call 100 households, you might get 5 people to answer.
So what does that say about the accuracy of polls?
It doesn't necessarily say anything about the accuracy of polls. It just said that people in the survey research business have to understand the weaknesses of the methodologies that they use. And we're in the midst of a paradigm shift and shifting away from random digit dialing surveys to web-based surveys of some sort because the cost differential is huge, factor of 10. The same place where we were in the 60s and 70s where we moved from in-person surveys to telephone surveys. It's going to take several years before we develop best practices.
You know, Andy Smith from UNH, I was one of the people who thought that Nikki Haley had a lot of momentum, and it clearly is based on your polls, David Paleologos for the Globe in Suffolk. That has faded. Assuming that's accurate, why has it faded?
Well, I don't know if she so much had momentum as if the musical chairs were going on and people dropped out and those voters have to go someplace. Christie's voters were not going to Trump. They weren't even going to the Trump-like candidates of DeSantis and Ramaswamy. They went to Haley. And we were seeing that consistently, that 60% plus of Christie voters said that Haley was their second choice. What Haley really needed was DeSantis and Ramaswamy to stay in the New Hampshire primary, because their second choice has been Trump. So what you're seeing is, yes, she got a boost from Christie's supporters moving her way, and then after Iowa, when you see the other two guys drop out, then Trump supporters, those people's supporters have to go someplace else, and they go to Trump.
We've spent a lot, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
We've spent a lot of time talking about this pivot thing. We spoke to the two guys who run it, spoken to a lot of voters who've called us or texted us saying, I'm an undeclared. I did switch before October 6th, primarily to vote for Haley to try to stop Trump. I always am skeptical that those things ever match the rhetoric. I'm right to be skeptical, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of like Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown saying, this time I'm going to hold it for you. It's always a great story. There's always a story about the undeclared, the independent voters in New Hampshire. Where are they going to go, the Republican or Democratic primary? But it almost never happens. It's usually about 3% or so will switch from one primary to the other over an election cycle. This time it may be more because there's really nothing going on the Democratic side. And there's some organized efforts to get people to do that. But I just can't see that it's going to be that much. I was using the analogy. Imagine if you're a Red Sox fan. Are you going to go down to Yankee Stadium to watch the Yankees without the Red Sox and then root for the Yankees? Probably not.
So based about what you just said about primaries being quirky and things change, people decide last minute, what do you think about today?
I think a lot of the decisions for many of the Republican voters were made about 8 years ago.
You think so?
Yeah, and the Trump supporters have been fairly solid, around 45% for the past year, and 80 to 90% were saying they had definitely made up their mind about who they were going to vote for months ago if you were a Trump supporter. So the decisions were just, of the other candidates who aren't Trump, where do I go?
Yeah.
So I saw you on CNN this morning with Kate Baldwin, and she's pointing at your tie. I don't see as well as Kate Baldwin. It's 1 million New Hampshires, right? Is that what it is?
Yes, rocks everywhere.
I love that, actually. That's really quite nice. So a lot of people on the show, including some pretty wise, I hate the word pundit, but I can't think of a better word, pundits, in the last few days, said last New Hampshire primary. And I thought when they first said it, they mean because democracy is over when Trump is elected in November, and I subscribe to that notion. What they really mean, what most of them meant, was Donald Trump's going to make the change on the Republican side. Iowa, Kim Reynolds came out against him, the governor. Here, Sununu came out against him. Why is he going to allow Iowa and New Hampshire to continue to go first? Why doesn't he go to Alabama, just as an example? You subscribe to that or no?
Well, it's possible, but the law in New Hampshire says they have to go first, so it will have the first primary.
Yeah, but it'd be like
regardless.
the Biden thing, right? Non-participatory.
Yeah, and New Hampshire's never been important because of the number of delegates and choosing who the nominee is. It's only been important because it's first, and it's only been first and stayed important because candidates thought it was important. There was always a fear of not going to New Hampshire. Think of Phil Gramm saying, I can skip New Hampshire, I'm going to go down to Louisiana. Good luck with that. Or Rudy Giuliani saying, I don't have to win New Hampshire, I'm going to go to Florida and win. Good luck with that. But if the case becomes, I can ignore New Hampshire and there's not party support for it, then it's likely to go away.
You know, what do you hear? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. We talked about how it's been so easy to park here, how the bars are closing early, how there's not so many people in the restaurants. People must be kind of bummed out about this.
Well, I think there's a sense of resignation upon the part of the voters in New Hampshire on both parties.
Yeah.
They're looking at the candidates they want. Neither party really likes who their nominee is going to be. And they were saying, oh, gosh, I guess I got to go vote anyway. It's a civic holiday in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be unfortunate for guys like you. It's going to be like this for till November.
Yeah.
That we're going to have a lot of morose voters in the country who aren't really going to be happy with the state of politics or who their choices are.
Well, we're morose, so there's no reason we wouldn't relate to that terribly well, Andy.
Well, you've spread the love already.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, the Globe had a story a few days ago talking about how New Hampshireites are sick of all these Massachusetts people moving north because they're going to get cheaper houses and better real estate. But but in terms of the voting, what has that Massachusetts exodus meant?
Well, it's actually kept the state as Republican as it is, frankly. It's people that moved right across the border from northern parts of Massachusetts into New Hampshire, into the southern parts of New Hampshire. Most of the people that have moved to New Hampshire, though, have been from other parts of the Northeast.
Yeah.
It's not just Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's people from New Jersey and Connecticut, New York, and they're coming to work at places like BAE or Fidelity or Liberty Mutual and places like that. You require a high level of education. You're getting people that are coming from the Northeast with that level of education. And the younger people that are moving here, they tend to be a little bit more democratic. But got to remember that only about a third of the adults in New Hampshire were born here. Almost nobody was born in New Hampshire.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
And the population churn in the state is pretty tremendous. About a third of the electorate are different people. The potential electorate are different people every 8 years. And the study we just did said from 2020 to 2024, 22% of the electorate, the potential electorate, are different people.
That's amazing.
So it's constant churn in the state of New Hampshire. It's similar to Florida or Arizona or Nevada rather than any other states around the Northeast.
Andy Smith, we love seeing you, and I don't know why we don't talk to you more often, by the way.
I'm the prophet of gloom here, I think so.
No, it's really great to see you.
Well,
and
you got
congratulations on your work.
And a great tie. That is a great tie.
It's going back in the closet for another 4 years.
Is.
I hope I have it to be able to pull it out in 4 years.
I hope you are too. Thank
We've been
you.
speaking with
Good
Andy
to see
Smith,
Andy.
director of the UNH Survey Center and associate professor of political science. Thank you very much, Andy, for taking the time.
Always a pleasure.
Coming up, we're going to take some calls.
We are right now.
877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. We're going to take some texts as well. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
And Stephanie from Salem, New Hampshire is first. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. Hi. Stephanie.
Hi, this is Helene.
Oh, Helene, I'm so sorry. You're Helene next to Stephanie.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah,
Hi,
I'm
Helene.
Helene.
Hi.
That's okay. The reason I called is I was a little bit surprised when I got into the booth this morning looking at the ballot. I was expecting to just write in Joe Biden, but there's about 20 names on it.
Yeah.
And of course I'd never heard of any of them except little Marion Williamson, who was kind of buried in the pile there. But I was like, who are all these people? And how come I've never heard of any of them?
Well, you know,
So
New
it
Hampshire,
was just
we
sort
actually
of
have two of them on. Vermin Supreme, who was one of those names, and Paperboy Love Prince is going to be on with Prince. Yeah,
Yes.
he's going to be on with us
Later.
a little bit later in the show.
Perennial candidate.
But, you know, you only need a $1,000 filing fee in New Hampshire to get on the ballot. And as a result, the tradition here is there are always 20-plus people, most of whom are not, with all due respect, serious candidates. But a couple of them are. Phillips, Williamson, and obviously the write-in thing. So who'd you vote for, if you don't mind telling us, Helene?
What did you say? Excuse me?
Who'd you vote for?
Oh, of course, Joe Biden. Who else?
You wrote in Joe Biden. Okay. Helene, thank you much for the call.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Here's Bob, who just voted in Nashua, and he said after you vote, there's a table for switching your party back. He said it's the longest line in the room because lots of people, I guess, switch by October 6th, I believe.
Yep, that's correct.
Switch their party so they could take a ballot that wasn't their Republican traditional ballot or their Democrat traditional ballot. They could be an independent for the vote today, so that's kind of an interesting thing. Stephanie in Bedford, thank you for calling.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a declared independent. I'll be voting in the Republicans because I figure Haley is more important. I mean, saving democracy is more important than keeping Biden in for another 4 years. But 8 years ago, I canvassed for Hillary in a small town in New Hampshire. 21 signs of saying Trump, Trump, Trump. One sign for Hillary with a big red X. That town actually voted for Hillary. And it was... There's like this hidden group of people who I'm hoping will come out.
I just want to be clear. I didn't hear you, Carol. You voted as an undeclared. You're voting for Haley as part of the effort to stop Trump. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
The thing I don't understand about
8
that,
years ago.
Stephanie, I heard the rest. Yes. The thing I don't understand, I understand the strategy on the surface, but if you're successful and Haley does stop Trump, you have a woman who is much more likely to beat Joe Biden than Donald Trump is, according to polling. So, did that factor into your thinking?
I understand that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it has. It has really factored into my thinking, and that is it's better to preserve democracy. I do believe Haley will respect our norms, and Trump will clearly not. If
that's
Biden
the biggest
were to
issue
beat
for me,
Trump,
too.
Which I think could happen.
Yep. No, I'm with you. And in that Suffolk University poll, not that we know exactly what the voters meant, the number one issue in New Hampshire was the future of democracy, and I hope they meant the right thing. Stephanie, thanks for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
A lot of debating among the texters about who is more mentally challenged, President Biden or President Trump. There's certainly lots of people think he cannot walk as well as he could, and he can't.
So what? What does that walking have to do with you being a president of the United States?
It doesn't have to do with his head, but there's a lot of back and forth about the fact that, that Haley's right about this. I think, generally speaking, you're not excited about two people that are in their 80s are running the country.
Well, maybe that's the case, but look at compare 4 years of one and what he accomplished.
No, I know.
With 4 years of another. And we have time for Diane from Portsmouth. You have a minute, Diane. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to say I did vote for Biden, and when I went to the poll, there was the only one represented was Biden. Nobody, and another thing, I didn't see Dean Phillips' name on the roster either.
Well, that's
and I
can't imagine. I'm not quarreling with you, but I can't imagine that being the case. Would you have voted for Phillips if he was with us yesterday?
No.
Would you have voted for him, or you're Biden all the way?
No, I'm Biden all the way. But I looked and I looked and I looked. If they were alphabetical, and his name was on. Well, maybe I missed it, but anyway.
Hey, Diane, before you go away.
Another thing.
Yeah, you go ahead. You tell us the other thing.
No, it's just being petty. This gentleman
we love petty. Be petty. Go ahead.
Be petty.
Very few people are citizens of Manchester who are born and raised, and I'm one. My family, everybody I know in Portsmouth here and in Manchester was born and raised in New Hampshire. Huh. So I just kind of took on.
We got it. We love Portsmouth, by the way. It's a great town, city. Hey, Diane, thank you. We got to go. Thank you very much for your call and sharing your vote with us. We appreciate it.
Okay, coming up after the noon news, we're going to talk with Jen Psaki.
Not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Comcast Business. With Comcast Business Months,
Haley is dismissive. So what I will say to Donald Trump is, if you have that political elite, you can have them. Because that's never who I wanted to work for. I always wanted to serve the people.
Haley is counting on support from independent voters who are allowed to vote in the GOP primary. Tamara Keith, NPR News, Manchester, New Hampshire.
NPR Newscast will begin live coverage at 4 p.m. Eastern Time from a polling place in Bedford, New Hampshire. The Israeli military says 21 soldiers have been killed in Gaza in the single deadliest incident for Israeli ground troops in Gaza since the war began. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports troops are also intensifying combat in Gaza's second largest city.
The Israeli military says it's creating a buffer zone inside Gaza along the Israeli border fence. Troops were in buildings rigged with explosives for demolition, and the military says Palestinian militants fired a missile at an Israeli tank near the building
this week.
Procter & Gamble says it expects profits this year to be flat or slightly lower than last year's. A write-down of the company's Gillette razor business shaved $1.3 billion off P&G's bottom line. United Airlines offered an upbeat forecast for the coming year, but the company had a warning for Boeing. United CEO told CNBC the airline will consider alternatives to Boeing's next model of 737s for its fleet, adding the jet maker needs to take real action to restore its reputation for quality. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street this hour, stocks are mixed. You're listening to NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Officials at Cambridge Public Schools have hired a law firm to investigate allegations of toxicity against one of its school principals. The principal in question is Kathleen Smith at the Graham and Parks Elementary School, and according to an email from Cambridge Public School Superintendent Victoria Greer, Smith fostered a toxic workplace environment at that school. The email, dated January 5th, was obtained by the Crimson newspaper and came in response to concerns raised by an anonymous parent group called G&P Caregiver Coalition. It calls into question Smith's leadership practices, and it's been going on for a while, apparently. The group first shared their concerns about Smith with the Cambridge School Committee late last year. There was a Mitt Romney sighting in Cambridge last night. The Utah senator and former Massachusetts governor and presidential candidate gave a speech at Harvard Business School. That speech was on the importance of free speech. The Crimson reports that Romney's talk was part of the Harvard Dialogue series. It's a program that fosters constructive communication in light of the recent campus unrest over the Israel-Hamas war, as well as Claudine Gay's resignation. In sports, Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame announcements are today at 4. The forecast, we're looking at clouds and some light snow out there right now, beginning to fall in Boston. High about 40 degrees today, clouds low 30s overnight, and then rain arrives for the next few days. It's 41 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Subaru, featuring the 2024 Subaru Forester Wilderness, with 9.2 inches of ground clearance and all-terrain tires for off-road capability. Learn more at Subaru.com/wilderness.
Houston Browdy, I am Margery Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Manchester Doubletree for the New Hampshire primary, which is, of course, today. We are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. And if you want to see an amusing video of me and Jim, Jim is giving us tips for what to take to New Hampshire.
I am.
And I am banging into the glass here at the studio. And it's kind of amusing. That is also at youtube.com/GBH News.
So yesterday afternoon, right after the show, we spoke with former White House press secretary for Joe Biden, Jen Psaki. She's the host of Inside with Jen Psaki, Sundays at 12 and Mondays at 8 p.m. on MSNBC. Psaki's forthcoming book is Say More, Lessons from Work, the White House, and the World, coming out in May on my birthday. Here it is. We're joined now on Zoom by Jen Psaki, White House press secretary for Joe Biden until 2022. Now the host of Inside with Jen Psaki, Sundays at 12 and Mondays at 8 p.m. on MSNBC. She will lead special coverage today on MSNBC ahead of the primary. Psaki's forthcoming book is Say More, Lessons from Work, the White House and the World, coming out on my birthday, May 7th, I should say.
Oh.
Jen, it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for your time.
Great to be here. Happy early birthday. I'll have to
Thank
send
you
you a
And congratulations on the book, Jen Psaki. So I've been dying to talk to you because all you've been hearing from Democrats and certainly Republicans this whole race is Joe Biden is too old, he's out of it. You were with him, not constantly, but you were with him an awful lot. So what do you say to people that say that about the president?
You know, I haven't worked for him for a year and a half, but I worked for him very closely for a year and a half before that. And he is somebody who would go from talking to a foreign leader to calling Mitch McConnell to negotiating a deal on the Hill to trying to get, money for the war in Ukraine and talking to leaders overseas. That was not my experience with him. He is 81 years old. That is a fact. And there's no question that my former colleagues and obviously the campaign need to grapple with the reality that is a concern for many voters, and they're fully aware of that. But my experience when I worked for him was that he was certainly somebody who was, not only prepared to be president, but also a person who of course, could take on the job every day. He was doing it when I worked for him.
You know, Jen Psaki, when you worked for him, obviously it was not as a candidate, it was as President of the United States, but communication of his policies and how he responded to the world around him was part of your job. I have to say, as someone, I know I speak for Margery, who regularly praise many of the accomplishments of the current president over the last couple of years, despite the opposition, not only from the Republicans, but from some in his own party. I frankly think they've done a rotten job of communicating to the public the things they've done. I mean, before we got here, Pete Buttigieg was here talking about all the infrastructure stuff and the bridges that are going to be built. But I can't tell you how many people call the show who are smart people, who are not all trumped up, who are shocked when we tell them that X has happened or Y has happened. Do you share that concern?
Yeah, but I think there are some reasons for it that it's important to acknowledge. I mean, one is that his likely opponent, even as we have the New Hampshire primary coming up tomorrow, it basically blocks out the sun of most media coverage because of his legal challenges, because of the court cases, because of the crazy things he says. It's quite hard to break through in this environment. So that is one big challenge. The second challenge is that people in the country, they vote, they decide what they're going to support based on how people make them feel, not based on data. Nobody votes on or supports people because of a fact sheet or because of economic data. And right now, the contrast is not completely clear, in part because there's a surprising swath of the public that still thinks that Trump might not be the nominee. And in part because people are still feeling personal pain from the economy. You can't tell people how you feel. So those are some of the challenges I think that they deal with. And I think they're important to acknowledge. It's not just like they do a rotten job. It's hard to get covered right now. It's hard to break through right now, given who's taking up a lot of the oxygen.
You know, we were talking before today about how Donald Trump is running as an incumbent, but he doesn't have to be the guy that's running and the guy that's running the country at the same time. Joe Biden has to do both. So I'm wondering, you're a very experienced person in being a press secretary. How do you, to get back to my first question, how do you advise, or would you advise, the people that are doing it now to get Joe Biden out there enough so people get over this hump about his age, which seems to be like the biggest issue?
Yeah. Look, I think, believe it or not, there's still a lot of time between now and the election. And what the best thing that could possibly happen to the Biden campaign is for it to become clear sooner rather than later that Trump is going to be the nominee. And that might be this week. We will see. But for them, they need the contrast is what it's going to help them break through and help them talk about not just accomplishments. I wouldn't put it in that category. I'd put it in the who am I fighting for? Because that's what people really care about. It's less like, the GDP is X. Like, that doesn't impact people's everyday life. They want to know and understand who's fighting for healthcare access, fighting for lower costs of prescription drugs, et cetera. Those are all things the Biden team talks about. But until it's in the scope of a contrast, it's challenging to do. The age issue is more about having him out there fighting exactly that fight, which everybody kind of saw him do that a little bit with the two democracy speeches a couple of weeks ago. I think the question is how quickly out of the gate can they be to continue to do more of those in other areas of direct contrast to remind people what the choice is about in November.
We're talking to Jen Psaki from MSNBC. She's got a book coming out on May 7th, obviously former press secretary to the President of the United States. I want to ask you about the comments of somebody you're close to who described Trump's attitude towards women as creepy, sexualized, and demeaning. That would be you.
I know who that is.
Morning, Mika. And, I have to say, I don't know who we were talking to, maybe Adam Kinzinger a couple of minutes ago, that Mitt Romney hit the nail on the head, having not only the courage to criticize Trump for his creepy, sexualized, demeaning behavior towards women, but basically criticized voters, which politicians never do, and said, how can people not be appalled, I'm paraphrasing, by the fact that this guy is found to have sexually abused E. Jean Carroll. And by the way, under Massachusetts statute, where we ordinarily operate, the sexual abuse under New York law would be rape under Massachusetts law. So he essentially raped a woman. And Romney's right. Is it cost him one damn vote, particularly among women in this country, Jen Psaki?
We don't know the answer to that yet, right? I mean, here's a reality, because I like to be an optimist. I do think what he said is creepy, sexualized, all the things you said. I said that, and I also applaud Mitt Romney for being as honest and forthright as he has been. I would say that what's important to remember for the optimists out there is that the Republican electorate, who Trump is appealing to right now, is focused on appealing to, in order to lock in the nomination, is different from the general election electorate, which is often underestimated in terms of kind of what you're paying attention, what they're paying attention to, and what they care about. You know, I remember leading up to 2022, there was this fear that there would be among Democrats, I should say, that there would be a red wave, that nobody would care about the preservation of democracy, that all these candidates who were big lie supporters would be elected. That's not what happened, because the general election electorate is different. Now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that contrast is drawn and it is clear. But women, whether or not it's about the comments, hard to predict. I mean, Trump won white women, so there we are as a white woman. I can't explain that. But like, there's also abortion access. There's also fundamental rights like that I think are going to be a huge driver, all kind of wrapped into one. And it may be hard to differentiate which things are the ones that are pushing people across the finish line.
You know, I would never in a million years compare Kamala Harris to to Sarah Palin, two totally different people. And there's a lot of racism and sexism involved with Kamala Harris as well, too, as the first woman of color to be vice president. But I think frankly, it's a problem, because a lot of people are worried about Joe Biden being older, and the vice president has not really caught on with a lot of the public. What do you do about that?
Well, when you say not caught on, I think she hasn't caught on with kind of elites in some ways. But actually, if you look at what she does when she goes out into the country and talks about abortion rights, when she goes to college campuses, she has quite a bit of support. There is an element of, and the way I often hear this when there's the attack of, and Nikki Haley actually does this. I went to her event the other day. She's a good speaker, I would say, first of all, at events, good debater. But she does this thing about Kamala Harris at her events where she says, let's be honest, Joe Biden isn't worth it, or isn't up to it. Translation, he's old. We could get Kamala Harris, right? Which is like a little bit, he's old, he may die. And look at her, she's a black woman. We can't elect a black woman to this country. We got to kind of call it what it is here. She's obviously very smart. Look at her background. We've seen her debate. We've seen her speak publicly. She's been out there in the country. I think some of the dialogues at dinner parties is a little behind what she's actually doing. But I would say if I were advising them, I would have her just spend the next 10 months on college campuses, out there talking about abortion rights, a lot of the issues that she cares very deeply and passionately about and is authentically making arguments on behalf of.
You know, you say you're an optimist. You can't hold a candle to Nikki Haley. There's never racism in this country. How much more optimistic can you get? Let me tell you, Jen Psaki. You know, you mentioned democracy.
Well, unless you reread her 2015 speech. Yeah. I recently reread her 2015 speech, which was quite good on taking the flag down, and it's like a different person. So
I can't believe I did the exact same thing this morning. You were totally right. Your former boss on January 5th, I think because of weather, on the eve of the January 6th anniversary, said Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past, it's what he's promising for the future. The Suffolk poll a week or so ago, January 9th, I think, had the number one issue, even though we're not quite sure what they mean, of voters in New Hampshire about the future of democracy. That's my number one issue. Does that sell, do you think, to the American people?
It's not the only thing that sells, but I think we underestimate how much it sells. And I count myself among this. I mean, it's an issue that's deeply important to me as well. And, you know, I take that in part from my time when I was at the State Department, and we were, you know, actually speaking about authoritarian regimes and governments around the world. We don't want to become that here, believe me. But I think that's a good example. That's an issue where, say, leading up to 2022, there was a debate within the Democratic Party, which I think was an interesting one, right? Should you be talking about democracy? Should you be talking about the economy? Should you be talking about abortion rights? The answer is kind of all of them, but democracy is an issue that people cared about, that people wanted to defend, that they wanted to stand up for, was underestimated. Just remember the fact that the big lie candidates really didn't end up getting elected, which tells you a lot as well. So I think it's important not to underestimate the power of that argument.
So we're going to be spending my birthday, the three of us, talking about your book. Is that correct, Jen Psaki?
Absolutely.
I'll look forward to it. I'll look forward to it.
We really appreciate your time, Jen. Thanks so much.
Thank you both for your time. Pleasure speaking with you.
You as well.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Jen Psaki, White House press secretary for Joe Biden until 2022. She's now the host of Inside with Jen Psaki. You can see it Sundays at noon Eastern Time and Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC. She's going to lead special coverage today on MSNBC ahead of the primary, and her forthcoming book is Say More, Lessons from the White House, Lessons from Work, the White House, and the World, is scheduled to be released, of course, on Jim's birthday.
Why wouldn't it be?
Thank you again to Jen Psaki. I should say we spoke with Jen Psaki yesterday afternoon. She's the host of Inside with Jen Psaki on MSNBC, and again, we spoke with her yesterday.
So now we're going to bring you our conversation with activist, perennial candidate, not just for president, by the way, Paperboy Prince. Joining us now at the GBH Manchester desk, by the way, I'm Jim Browdy, she's Margery Egan, is Paperboy Love Prince, running for the Democratic nomination for president here. You might recognize them from their rap career. Here's some of their single, Futuristic Schools.
Futuristic schools make learning brand new. We need futuristic schools make learning brand new. We need
some futuristic schools, actually. We're joined now by Paperboy Love Prince. Welcome to Boston Public Radio. I can call you Paper, right?
Yes, you can.
By the way, you want to hear something amazing?
Please.
I have the exact same jacket. Is that incredible?
I tell you.
Paper,
yeah. I think Paperboy Love Prince might look a little bit better in the jacket, Jim. We don't want to go there,
Well,
actually.
whatever. Go
But you
ahead.
certainly do look like you're in a great mood, which I guess is the Paperboy Love Prince whole thing. So
Yes.
give us a brief summary. What's your platform?
Paper, yeah. It's our time. Listen, my platform is the most revolutionary platform that is literally going to reshape and is reshaping American politics and honestly global politics.
What is it?
It's love. It's literally love. And you saw in the last election and the election before that, so many folks were focused on hate. And they were talking about how do we stop hate? Listen, I got the antidote, Jim. It's love. That's what we need. Love. So that's the central part of my platform, and it reeks through all of our policies. And I
Well,
can go
for
more
example,
into
I'll
those.
give you one example. When I was following, you were running for mayor of New York City
Yes.
against Eric Adams there. You wanted to replace the police department in New York City with the love team.
Yes.
Now, I assume you want to replace the FBI with the love team, too. Is that correct?
You know, what I will say about that is we need to focus more on positive reinforcement. Right now, one of the main things that we have with the police and with the justice system in general is negative reinforcement. So when someone does something bad, they get a ticket or something like that. But there's nothing actually positive to, offset that for people that are doing good.
That's where the love team comes in, right?
Exactly.
Do I get it or do I get it?
You're getting it. You're getting it.
Yeah,
Let's
thank you.
elaborate on the ticket thing just a little bit, because the thing that I most resonated with in your platform was your TaskRabbit crisis with the 1,000. You're doing some work for TaskRabbit. You racked up $1,000 worth of tickets in New York City.
Yes.
And what do you think we should be doing about that?
Well, and that ends up being another tax on everyday Americans that isn't included as a tax, but it
Totally.
is one of these kind of secret taxes. And I think that the same way how we have these secret taxes on people, we can do the same thing to give back to people. I mentioned in schools, folks, the kids that are struggling in school, why not incentivize them to do better? Pay them, hey, you got all A's this semester, here's $500 to show that we value this type of work in our society.
Paper, how you hoping? I'm sorry, go
I
ahead,
just want to
Margaret.
ask you, what were you doing with TaskRabbit? What were you doing for them?
So I actually was helping folks move.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes would
Okay.
also help, people would book me to, be an artist. And I was Paperboy Prince on there, so they would see, oh, it's Paperboy Prince. I could come. I actually sang to somebody's wife when they were out of town at Burning Man. It was like a burner. And he wanted me to come and sing to his wife, for her birthday. And I bought flowers and I did a whole thing. So,
okay.
By the way, many people who became president started on TaskRabbit, as
That's
you well
right.
know. So what are you hoping for, Paper, in New Hampshire? How are you hoping to do?
I'm hoping to do really well. I've run for office. This will be my 5th time running for office in 4 years, and we've done really well in New York City's first ranked choice voting election for mayor, which you mentioned. we got over 66,000 votes.
Wow.
Which a lot of folks ranked us because they said, hey, we want something different. We're really excited about love.
Okay, so here's the big dilemma before you go. We're also going to have Vermin Supreme on.
Oh, great.
Now, if people have come down to either paper or Vermin Supreme, make your case as to why you should get that vote.
You know what? I love Vermin Supreme so much, and part of the love team is we have so many politicians wanting to divide us and tell us not to get into the other people. I love what Vermin Supreme is doing because he's speaking to so many folks that are disenfranchised by the political system, and I'm doing the same thing, and because of what he's done, he allows me to come and do the same thing, but with even deeper policy in a way that's super creative and super fun and loving. So, one policy that I do want to say on the air that's exciting is our Million for a Million policy. And I really want to get this out there. We would give $1 million to 1 million people who are doing something good in our community every single year.
Love it.
That's a teacher, that's a mom, that's a coach, that's just somebody that's maybe you work with that's doing something great. So these types of things will really help to show how love can change our world.
Paper, it's great of you to stop by. Good luck. Thanks so much.
Paper, yeah. It's our time. America, let's go. Paper, yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in. And as Jim said, good luck tomorrow. We've been speaking with Paperboy
By the way,
Love
his
Prince.
staff person has a dog in her backpack. This
Oh
is
my
a
gosh.
campaign.
Oh my
I
gosh.
should have brought Shaq.
Oh my
maybe
gosh.
next time.
That's the
Maybe
first
next
dog.
time.
I
Okay,
should have brought
first
Shaq.
dog.
Okay. Paperboy is an artist, activist, and they are running for the Democratic presidential nomination. Paperboy, thank you. Paperboy, I shouldn't say. Paperboy Love Prince. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Paperboyprince.com.
Love it.
For
See ya.
everything. Thank
Bye.
you. Paper, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Paperboy Love Prince. That was an interesting conversation, Jim. Up next, you are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, and we're going to be talking to Tamara Keith up next. She is NPR's senior White House correspondent, someone who's regularly flying around the country on Air Force One. She is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 at the Doubletree Hotel in downtown Manchester for the New Hampshire primary.
The National Coalition Women for Nikki is making a strong showing in New Hampshire, and Massachusetts Republicans are joining their ranks.
No matter what I hear, it is the grassroots are moving, and these people are excited by Nikki Haley.
But her appeal might not cross the border as easily.
Massachusetts Republicans are more conservative on abortion. As a result, Haley could do better in Massachusetts than she would in New Hampshire.
You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you and the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the Commonwealth's flagship public university. You can learn more about research, innovation, and economic impact for the Commonwealth at umass.edu. That's umass.edu.
And The Huntington, presenting Stand Up If You're Here Tonight, a one-man, one-audience show at the intimate Masso Studio, 264 Huntington Avenue, starting January 20th. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browdy. We're broadcasting live from our Manchester studio at the Doubletree Hotel for today's primary. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. In the studio now is NPR's senior White House correspondent. She's also co-host of the NPR Politics podcast, maybe the top political news podcast in America. She regularly appears on the PBS NewsHour weekly segment Politics Monday. And she is Tamara Keith. Tamara, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, it is great to be here with you.
Well, we're very excited you're here. And before we get to the politics, I just want to know, so I introduce you by saying you regularly fly around Air Force One. I assume that's correct?
Oh, it's very
You
correct.
got any good stories from Air Force One? A little bit about the decor, what the bathrooms are like, any good gossip or anything?
Here she goes.
Oh, I mean, how much time do we have?
All you need.
So what I will tell you is that the food on Air Force One is amazing.
Really?
Absolutely. They go shopping at Wegmans and Costco, and they make real food with real vegetables, real meat, usually thematically tied to wherever we're flying to or from. Truly just an amazing experience that, is probably what flying was like in the 1970s.
Wow. I thought since
Except with pressurization and
I thought
everything.
since the president's so fond of like cheeseburgers and French fries, it would be all fast food. But no.
That was a different president, Marjorie.
Donald Trump?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's fond of
Well,
cheeseburgers and fast
Joe
food.
Biden is the president now.
Well, Joe Biden is the president now, but weren't you in the? You were not
Yes.
flying on Air Force One with Trump?
No, I flew with Trump. I
Yeah.
flew with Obama.
Yeah.
And
so difference between the two?
3?
No.
No.
No. In terms of the food on Air Force One, that's
It's always
all
good.
provided by the Air Force, and it has always been good.
Okay.
Tiny little Tabasco bottles, real glasses. I mean, the whole thing. It's amazing.
Okay.
And just so the American people are not worried about their taxpayer dollars, the press pays, even the staff pay for their meals.
Okay. And the bathrooms, they're not like the regular airplane bathrooms, I assume. Yeah, okay. All right. Enough of that then.
Notice what Marjorie cares about, and you'll find out what I care about in a second. So, Tamara Keith, the headline, the title of your recent podcast was, Then There Were Two. How likely is it after today the next headline will be, Then There Is One?
Right. So Nikki Haley is out there today making the case that she is moving on to South Carolina. They are going to be up on the air with ads. They have a rally planned. They are not stopping before South Carolina. Her claim is that she never said she was trying to win in New Hampshire. She just said that she wanted to be stronger in New Hampshire than she was in Iowa. Let's add a dose of reality to that. She has a real problem in South Carolina in terms of winning her state. New Hampshire is the most favorable territory she is going to see anytime soon in the early primary calendar because of, as you've discussed, the independent voters who can vote. You move on to South Carolina, she is now this moderate brand. She's actually a conservative, but in the realm of the battle between MAGA and the traditional Republican Party, or what had been the traditional Republican Party, she's on that more moderate side. South Carolina is full on MAGA.
Yeah.
I don't know that she could have been elected now.
I don't understand. We had Chuck Todd here yesterday who said she stays in the whole way because if there's a conviction before the convention, who knows what's going to happen. She wants to be there. It seems to me that you can't. If she's young, as presidential candidates go, and I assume she wants a future in politics, it's really bad form. It's one thing to lose in Iowa and even to lose in New Hampshire. To get crushed in your home state is really a problem. So unless she has a ridiculously good day today, I don't really see how she does South Carolina. Do you share that perspective?
Yes, I do share that perspective. I don't know if I'm right or not.
Oh, nor do I.
But one does not. You don't want to lose your home state, and you don't want to lose your home state in a really big, bad way, which is why candidates usually try to avoid that.
Yep. So I hate to be asking you questions about things.
Here we go back to
things
Air Force
ridiculous.
One.
No, it's not. I just read that you overhauled the workspace there at the White House.
I did.
So tell us a little bit about that, because most people, I'm not going to get to ride in Air Force One, Jim. I don't know about you.
I don't think I
and
will
I'm
be
probably
anytime
not going
soon
to get to
either.
work in the White House as a correspondent. So I am curious what it is like there. I mean, it's an old building.
It is an old building, and the press workspace is extremely tight. There is not a lot of room for us. People see the briefing room on TV, and it looks big and glorious, and it is small. It is very small. The first thing that you notice when you walk into the press area of the White House is, oh my God, it looks so much bigger on TV. We were not able to expand our space at all, but we got new seats in the briefing room, new stain, new leather. Basically the same shape, but new stain, new leather, and actually they match the new lectern at the front of the briefing room. And then this is the most boring thing in the world, but we basically replaced all the desks and all the cabinets, and we actually had the desks made more narrow so that we'd have more room for people to actually sit, because nobody's using a desktop anymore. They're all using laptops.
Yeah.
Things were completely and totally falling apart. And so we, as a press corps, raised the money, and it was a lot of work. It was a couple of years of work, but we got it done.
We're talking to Tamara Keith. So, Tamara, we discussed earlier, we talk a lot on this show. It's one of the few things I think we are not guilty of when people talk about the press mishandling an issue. We talk a lot about let's call it the mental acuity of Donald Trump. And we played earlier in the show him confusing Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi in terms of who he allegedly gave 10,000 troops to. And he said Nikki Haley. Obviously, he meant Nancy Pelosi, even though that's not true either. He confused, we know, Barack Obama and Joe Biden in terms of who he was running against the other day. There's a story in the New Republic. I don't know if you've seen it. The subtitle of which is "The Media's Obsessions with the Mental Acuity of Our Presidential Candidates Seems Dangerously One-Sided." I think that's a fair criticism. Do you?
I think that although you are focusing on these couple of clips that have been making the rounds, and obviously I've talked about the Nikki Nancy glitch on our air as well, I think that a lot of the American people don't spend a lot of time watching Trump rallies and Trump speeches, and they don't know what he's saying. This gets beyond the mental acuity question. Those glitches are definitely happening, very clearly happening when he's out there. But also, the American people aren't seeing, the way he ends his rally, where he's talking about, basically destroying the vermin that are everyone that he doesn't agree with. There is a lot happening that simply just isn't being consumed because maybe it isn't new. Or maybe, as we have seen both in our listener data and in polling that has been done with the public, people are burned out on politics. They are tuned out. They have, many people, including Republicans, have enjoyed the last several years of not thinking about Trump every morning at breakfast. And they aren't necessarily ready to tune back in. That's a case that the Biden campaign is making, that they don't think people are fully aware of the choices.
We're talking to Tamara Keith, NPR's senior White House correspondent.
Well, that's also a big debate that a lot of us in the media got blamed last time around. Well, not last time around, in 2016, for showing too much of Donald Trump from beginning to end. The famous CNN story, they had the empty podium
waiting for him to arrive.
Waiting for him to show up. And of course, he's not on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. But there is an argument that we're not seeing maybe what we should see in terms of looking at him doing these weird things, like thinking he's running against Barack Obama. So what happens down the road, assuming it is going to be Trump-Biden, which is what it looks like it's going to be? Does Trump even debate Biden?
I seriously doubt that we are going to see debates.
Boy, that is horrible.
And I hope I'm wrong because, as a journalist, I'm a big fan of debates. I think that they are clarifying, and also they are something for us to cover, and it's something that I look forward to every 4 years and have always looked forward to. But former President Trump is basically in a blood feud with the Bipartisan Debate Commission, and President Biden's campaign is not going to go out of their way to sit there next to an empty podium. And there is an argument that President Biden has not exactly been putting himself out there in uncontrolled situations much. He hasn't done a lot of freewheeling press conferences. He, his team, his reelection campaign is very controlled by design. And a debate is an uncontrolled setting. And it's an uncontrolled setting that neither of them may put themselves in.
How much do press secretaries matter in terms of the president's points and messages getting out? Are there ones that have really been good and not so good?
Yes.
Yeah? Like who?
Mm-hmm.
I remember Sean Spicer. He was a big hit when he first made it to the Trump White House. But why does it matter?
Well, the White House press briefing is the venue where the American people, by way of us, the press, are able to question the administration. It is the views of the administration and the president on display for the entire world. Lying in a press briefing, in my mind, is a cardinal sin. It's a sin many people have committed. A great many people have committed. But I think that having that venue for that sort of direct access, live on C-SPAN, for the American people to see what the president and the White House, what their position is, to see them pressed and questioned on the issues that matter to the American people. When there's a deficiency, when there's a failure, go to the, there was COVID, there was also just the the baby milk powder formula shortage.
Yes.
And those press briefings are an opportunity for us as the press, as stand-ins for the public, to hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Is this beat particularly stressful?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you do know, but you don't want to say? Is that
No.
what it is?
I mean, it can be. I think that the challenge with the White House beat that is different from every other beat that I know of is that there are so many gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You don't get to the president very often. You don't even get to the chief of staff very often. You're often just like running from one gatekeeper to the next gatekeeper to the next gatekeeper. And whereas if you're covering Congress, you go walk the halls and you can just bump into a member of Congress and then they'll see your microphone and they'll come to it like a moth to the bright light because they can't help themselves. The White House beat is their message discipline. Even in the Trump White House, though not as much, message discipline is the thing that rules the White House and makes White House coverage challenging. And also, I just like interviewing people, not officials, real people. I like getting out. I have been having the time of my life here in New Hampshire because I've been able to, get away from the gatekeepers for a little while.
Good for you.
By the way, despite the gatekeepers, you do a fabulous job. You really are
thank
terrific.
You.
Tamara, it's great to have you.
Thank
Thank
you very, very much for being here. Congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with NPR senior White House correspondent from NPR, and she's the co-host of the NPR Political Podcast, the top political news podcast in America, at least according to that's what NPR calls it.
At least according to my bio.
That's right. So we're going to keep that one. Thank you very much, Tamara Keith, for coming in.
So glad to be with you.
Up next, from the sublime or the together to the maybe not so together. Earlier today, we talked with perennial performance candidate, 9-time perennial candidate Vermin Supreme. Here he is.
We're joined by one of the most in-demand figures during primary season, Vermin Supreme. He's run for president every cycle since, I think, 92. Part of his platform, who can quarrel with this, is to give everyone in America a pony. Vermin loves Supreme. I don't think any relationship to Paperboy loved Prince, as far as we know. It's wonderful to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Long-time listener and first-time guest. It's great to be here.
By the way, we're flattered.
Yes,
do we call you Vermin or Supreme? What do you prefer?
Vermin will be fine.
Vermin is fine. Vermin, it's wonderful to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. And yes, Paperboy loved Prince. I invited him to join the New Hampshire primary.
And he has. We have.
He has indeed.
He's great.
He understood the possibilities of self-promotion involved in this campaign. And he went and he took it.
He's done a beautiful
He's done a beautiful job.
He has
done
indeed.
A beautiful job. So I think the first question is everyone wants to know, Vermin Supreme, why the boot?
Why the boot?
Yeah.
Well, once again, of course, my stock answer is that the boot stands for all that is good in America. Oftentimes, personnel from the media will ask me about the boot, and I tell them that the boot is a pile of excrement and that they are the flies that buzz around it. Of course, it is a signifier to those that I approach that what they might be on the receiving end of may not be linear. Of course, many people speculate. Is there some sort of space alien in the boot controlling Vermin Supreme's movement and emotions? Or is the boot itself some sort of space alien? Perhaps it's like Ratatouille, and there's some sort of rat up there controlling me. But it is none of those things. It is a magical boot. It is a boot that has absolute magic that has allowed me to exponentially amplify my First Amendment free speech voice and communicate with people around the world. It is a beautiful thing because if you take a photograph of me any place, anytime, show it to any kid and say, hey kid, what's wrong with this picture? They're going to say, that guy has a boot on his head.
He does. Now, Vermin, do you have any idea if Ron DeSantis got the idea for the white go-go boots from you? Do you know if there's any connection?
I suspect there is. Of course, he did do that callback. Did you hear him say literally that if Donald Trump came to the debate, he would wear a boot on his head?
He did. I think I heard
he
that.
He did, in fact, see that. So that was a little bit of a nod. And, of course, I did have a great time at his rally the other night.
Yes.
How were you received? You essentially started the damn rally.
Yes. Well, once again, I always say that if your advance team is not tight, if you don't run a tight ship, I'm going to end up on your stage.
Yeah.
And so it followed the plan. I went to the event. I muscled my way up to the front. I found out that I had a lot of supporters up front because a lot of political tourists come to these events. Sure. And so I was just sort of working the crowd. And then I took the riser and did my bit. and which was all. They asked me to leave, so I left. But it had a crazy reverb in the internet, and a lot of people were very confused. A whole bunch of people were attacking Ron DeSantis because they thought they let me on purpose. A lot of people attacked Ron DeSantis because I was on stage, and they felt his security failed, and everybody else just knew me and thought it was a lot of fun. So even Laura Loomer tweeted. She tweeted out a nude picture of me.
Nude?
A nude picture that I put out myself.
I'll pass on that one, by the way. Thank you.
Okay,
for
but
offering
it didn't show any junk or anything.
Didn't.
But nonetheless, she did, and she said something to the effect of, "How could Ron DeSantis have Vermin Supreme on stage? There were small children present." And things devolved after that in the comment section.
Vermin, other than this pony deal, what's the Vermin Supreme platform? I mean,
once again, of course, I'm known for the 4 basic platform planks. They are, of course, free ponies for all Americans. It is a federal pony identification system. You must have your pony with you at all times.
Understood.
Harnessing the awesome power of zombies to create energy, using the latest in hamster wheel technology, time travel research, going to go back and kill Hitler and a whole host of others when they're little babies, because it's so much easier then. And, of course, mandatory toothbrushing laws, because gingivitis has been eroding the country's gum line for long enough and must be stopped. Of course, now there's the interstate roller coaster, weather domes, a whole host of really ridiculous, resonant things that I've discovered. Once again, of course, simple, elegant, and effective. A
lot
boot
of
on the
us-
head.
Let me tell you.
It is elegant.
I am somebody that's really worried about the gingivitis epidemic.
You do?
In fact, absolutely,
Indeed.
absolutely. I dental floss as much as I can. But aren't you supposed to have a toothbrush with you? Where is it?
I do have one with me.
What
It's right here. Can't you see it?
No.
It's real. It's okay. Fine. This is radio.
Do you come out,
to the
you
radio
forget
audience?
it?
I have a 6-foot toothbrush right here. To the TV audience, it's invisible.
Okay, so what happened? Did you forget it?
No, it's in the car.
It's in the car.
I'll come
okay.
back. You're
It's in
just
the car.
inviting me to come
okay,
No,
back.
you don't have to come back. There's
No.
plenty. Now, let me ask you something. Paperboy Love Prince was raving about you when we talked to him a little bit earlier in the
Yes.
show.
When I discovered Paperboy Prince, it was a little blurb in an article where he said something to the effect of, "I thought if I was a more handsome Vermin Supreme and a rapper."
Well, you're pretty good looking, let me tell you. I
Thank
don't know
you,
about
sir.
the naked thing, but
Thank you.
one
Well,
last thing.
you'll have to see.
Have you thought? I won't. No, I don't. Have you?
I can show you right now. If you
That's
like.
okay. Have you thought about joining forces, like a ticket with you and Paper?
Yes, that's a very real possibility.
It is a real possibility.
Yes, of course, I'm hoping to hold a pageant for all the possible vice presidential candidates. But what I'm here really to talk about is that I am, in fact, the president of New Hampshire. I am here to declare victory. I am here to talk about the Narnian space lasers that are somehow flipping the votes from Dean Phillips from me to Dean Phillips. And I believe that there are indeed gremloids in the voting machines that are changing the votes around away from me.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah,
people
Donald
need to
Trump
be aware
is
of that.
into
Now, the
things
really
in
bad news
voting
is we're out of
machines.
time.
We're out
But
of
this
time.
was unbelievable. Will you text me some of those photographs?
Yes.
Please
Stop
don't.
the steal, people! Stop the steal! I'm the president! Stop the steal! Vote for me! And if you haven't voted yet, vote for me. Thank
you
you
look
very
good in the
much.
boot, by the way.
Appreciate it.
You
Thank
do.
you. I'm sure you would also.
I probably would too.
And,
Thank you very
Great to
much
see you,
for
Vermin.
being with you.
And-
Vermin Love Supreme,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you
And
coming by.
Stop interrupting Margery.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for that,
I
Vermin
made her
Supreme.
month.
You get my vote.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Take care, people.
Okay, that was indeed Vermin Supreme. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by writer and satirist Andy Borowitz, and we're so excited to talk to him. This is Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from Manchester, New Hampshire for the New Hampshire primary.
After the fall of Roe v. Wade.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB. And Boston Medical Center, dedicated to rewriting excellence in healthcare. BMC brings together experts and the community to lead the way in clinical innovation and health equity. Learn more at bmc.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browdy. We're broadcasting live from the Manchester Doubletree for the New Hampshire primary, which is today. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And as we told you repeatedly, if you go to youtube.com/GBH News, you'll see Margery and me make fools of ourselves. So check that out. By the way, a commenter on YouTube is pretty good. Writes, confession. The past few shows, I definitely thought that Vermin Supreme was just your show's code for Donald Trump. And actually, it could have been. Joining us now is writer and satirist Andy Borowitz. Since 2001, he's been writing the Borowitz Report, one of our all-time favorites. You can find him on Facebook. His latest book is spectacular. It's called Profiles in Ignorance, How Americans Politicians Get Dumb and Dumber. Hello, Andy Borowitz.
Hello, Jim and Margery.
Hello,
Wow,
it's
he's
so
here.
nice to see you, Andy Borowitz. I think the question we're all waiting to hear from you, Andy, is how do we think versus the president, the former president, I should say, how will Nancy Pelosi do today?
I am pulling for Pelosi. I voted, as some people may know, you guys know, I am now a New Hampshire resident.
We do know that.
That's right.
I live in Hanover, and I grew up as a little kid hearing about the New Hampshire primary and watching it on TV and all the drama and all the stakes. And now I'm finally in New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire primary blows. It's terrible. What happened? I feel very shortchanged.
How do you define blows, by the way?
It's just a lame primary, as we know. It's just like there's very little drama. I went to cast my vote in Hanover. My wife and I both went. And my wife, by the way, is an actual journalist, so she provided some balance.
Okay.
And she said, we've got to get some, we've got to interview some people because you're going to be on public radio.
That's right.
And it's like, she doesn't realize what my role is. I never provide information. I just I sow confusion. But since, I love her, she's the love of my life, so we had to do a little bit of interviewing. We interviewed the people in front of the polling place who were representing the various candidates. And I'll give you the rundown.
Please.
This is, Hanover is kind of a liberal bubble.
Right.
As you know, I've only lived in liberal bubbles. I will live nowhere else. I lived the Upper West Side of New York, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, my God.
West LA.
Yeah.
And I grew up in northeastern Ohio, Cuyahoga County, which you don't think of Ohio now as Ohio is kind of a red state now. But when I was there, we elected the most liberal member of the United States Senate, Howard Metzenbaum.
Oh, my gosh.
And I worked on Howard Metzenbaum's campaign in '76 when I was in high school. So,
wow.
So I really tried to insulate myself from any viewpoints that differ with mine.
That's beautiful.
It's been wonderful.
Who'd you vote for?
Well, it was tough because Paperboy Love Prince.
He was on
the ballot.
2 minutes ago.
And
He was.
Was he on?
Yeah.
Excellent.
They on.
Oh, yeah.
They on. And also, I guess you were talking about Vermin.
Just right before
Supreme, Vermin Supreme.
Vermin. So who did you who impressed more in their appearance?
It's very hard
Paperboy?
to vote against somebody with a boot on his head. That's my position.
It was a different style, though.
Vermin Supreme.
That was Vermin Supreme. Paperboy had these voluminous sleeves that looked like they were stuffed with pillows, and it was like gold.
Like a monarchy kind of thing.
Yeah, monarchy, like the King and I kind of outfit. You know what I mean?
I learned that Paperboy had made an appearance in Hanover yesterday because there was, I'll give you the rundown of who was sort of canvassing in front of the Hanover polling place, which is Hanover High School. There were two people representing Nikki Haley. There was two people representing President Joe Biden. And there was one person representing Marianne Williamson.
She was here yesterday, too.
Okay, you've gotten all the big names.
We have,
for you. What a get.
And we got you, too.
What a get for you guys. Yeah, now I'm beginning to really question my prestige in the media firmament. Now that I see I'm coming on after Vermin Supreme.
That's right after Vermin Supreme.
Well, let me just say something about Marianne Williamson.
Please.
Okay.
I don't think that she should lead our nation, but I do think she should lead our nation in a guided meditation. Because
I think so.
She has the most soothing voice.
She does.
I work out a lot to stuff on YouTube, and YouTube ads in New Hampshire always feature Marianne Williamson, and she comes on.
They do?
And my blood, she's paid a lot she's gotten a lot of paid ads, at least that are piped into Hanover, into my liberal bubble. So I hear her voice and my blood pressure immediately lowers. She's so soothing. Marianne Williamson could come on and saying, "Your house is currently on fire. Run for your lives." And it would be so soothing. And so she had a representative there, a very nice young woman who spoke to my wife and me. And this woman also very soothing. And I said, why are you supporting Marianne Williamson? And she said, I just really like her policies. And it's just, maybe that's what our country needs. Forget
She's
about
calm. She's calm.
She is calm. I mean, I don't know where she stands on anything, but I feel like she could just really bring us down from the boil.
The
we're at.
temperature.
Well, she got very upset with me yesterday when I said she was the self-help guru.
She didn't like that.
She doesn't like the self-help kind of thing. But wait a second. I asked you like 15 minutes ago who you voted for. And then you went through all the people standing outside with the signs.
I voted.
Vermin Supreme. Who is it?
I voted for Brandon.
You did?
Let's go, Brandon. I voted, and my wife hates me when I say that. She says, that's what the bad guys say. And I say, no, we own that now. So I voted for Dark Brandon. I looked at where consumer confidence is going. I looked at the Dow top 38,000.
Yes.
First ever.
And so I'm a pocketbook voter. And I see that the economy, I have no idea why the perception of the economy is negative, but I assume that's we're hearing a lot of trolling of Brandon.
Yes.
But I'm actually Brandon, and I want to tell you something about Joe Biden. I've never been a big supporter of Joe Biden in the 900 years he's been running for president. I mean, he first ran in 1987.
Yeah, it didn't go well that year.
It didn't go well.
No.
That was the
Little
Neil
plagiarism
Kinnock.
problem.
That was the Neil Kinnock year. And I mean, the mashup of him and Neil Kinnock, even as a Democrat, I urge people to watch that on YouTube because it is hilarious. Of course, now, as you guys know, being Boston people, plagiarism is everywhere now.
Yes,
so it's
everywhere.
So he was, if anything, ahead of his time. But I'm actually, in the last election, I was a big Elizabeth Warren supporter. I thought a lot of people in the primary were great. I wasn't a Joe Biden supporter, but I've actually been surprised at how good a president he's been. So I
surprised lots of us.
Yeah, so I voted for Joe Biden, and I had to write in his name, and also you have to color in the little lozenge next to
you do?
Yeah, I was about to. And this is funny because, there have been a lot of ads that independent organizations have run for Biden, and even though it's not a real primary, they've said, write in Joe Biden to show your support. And they show like a little check mark. You put a little check mark next to your write-in. That's not correct. You have to color in the lozenge.
Oh.
So I did that. My wife did that. And, so there you go. But I will say this from Hanover's perspective. I heard from election officials there to deliver a little actual news. Turnout was very low on both sides. By the time I got there, which was around 8:15, I think they'd recorded something like 200 votes, which puts us kind of in Dixville Notch territory in terms of turnout.
Well, the reason I asked you about the race between Trump and Pelosi was, of course, that Donald Trump mixed up the candidates, and as your headline, great headline for your piece, DeSantis exit creates two-way race between Trump and Pelosi.
Yes.
Because apparently the former president isn't sure if he's running against Nikki Haley or Nancy Pelosi.
He's also mentioning Obama a lot.
Obama a lot.
Obama, I did not know Obama could run again, but I'm psyched about that because he was a great president.
He was.
That's right.
He was fantastic. He did such a good job, and he was so good at communicating with, which is impressive because he wasn't even born here. He just has so much talent.
That's right.
You've written about the go-go boots, which I am totally obsessed with. That's Ron DeSantis' white
go-go
white
boots.
Do you think it seems to me that strategically he gave up on them too soon? I mean, my sense is they could have played big in New Hampshire. Are you with me?
The go-go boots? Well, it's interesting because this brings us back to the man of the moment or the person of the moment who is Paperboy Love Prince because one of the Biden canvassers today was a young man who is 21 years old and is a Dartmouth College undergraduate.
Oh, good for him.
And he was out there for Biden. And he said the Paperboy was there yesterday and was wearing, as he described it, silver moon boots. So
there you go.
I think he had silver moon boots on. I think he had them when he was here.
So if you could just have gotten it down to a two-person race between DeSantis and Paperboy, and you have the go-go boots and the silver moon boots, that could have been interesting. That would have been actually the most interesting thing about this primary thus far.
Well, you point out that poor Floridians are devastated about DeSantis' loss. How come they're devastated?
They were hoping that he would leave Florida for Washington. I know it's kind of choose your poison, but I mean the best case scenario for Florida right now is that DeSantis accidentally steps on one of those migrant buses to Martha's Vineyard. That's really the best. That's their only chance of getting rid of this dude at this point.
Why do you live? Did we ask you this? Why do you live in New Hampshire?
I live here. Well, it's interesting. During the pandemic, we were, like a lot of people, we were thinking about how we were New Yorkers, and we were seeing what a disaster New York City was at that time. But we had already been thinking about leaving New York for other reasons. We weren't crazy about the education our daughter was getting. And my wife, who, as I mentioned, is an actual journalist, had previously, in an earlier incarnation, had written for the Rutland Herald in Rutland, Vermont.
Oh.
That was her first job out of college. So we'd always been attracted to what is known as the Upper Valley.
Yes.
With Hanover and Norwich, Vermont. And we got up there, and as once we arrived, I realized, this is the liberal bubble that I've been longing for, because we are just right on the border of Vermont. So we're practically communists.
Does your actual journalist wife have an actual name? Or
She
no?
is, yes.
What is that name?
Her name is Olivia Gentili, and you can find her at oliviagentili.com, where she's done. She is like one of the last investigative journalists standing in the United States of America.
Good for her.
Yeah, she actually just did a major piece for Insider.com, which some people also call BusinessInsider.com, but she did this amazing piece, an expose of how family courts in America work. And so there's somebody in my family who's doing something positive.
Spell her last name.
Gentili. It's like Gentile.
Gentile,
I know we get a lot
okay.
of jokes about it. She is actually of the Hebraic tribe.
Okay.
But her father is Italian.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from Boston.
That is
incredible.
Business Insider does a lot of great reporting.
Yeah.
They've been doing a lot lately, haven't they?
Yeah.
Very busy.
That's Nuri Oxman, the territory?
Yes.
That wasn't your
right.
wife,
That's
correct?
right.
That was not her.
No,
I think,
absolutely not.
Yeah, but that was quite an expose.
Bill Ackman is not like a supporter of yours, is he?
I don't believe so.
I just want to be clear.
I don't believe so. I'm hoping Bill Ackman has never heard of
Okay.
me. Because when he hears of you, that's always bad news.
Yeah, okay. Now, I have to tell you, one of my favorite headlines for lately from you was Americans seething with envy of judge who keeps telling Donald Trump to sit down and shut up.
Yes. I mean, didn't you want to be that judge?
Oh,
He
yeah.
just kept on. It made me want to apply to law school, actually, to eventually become a judge like that.
It was like a dominatrix thing in some ways, wasn't it really?
Absolutely. It was nice. Well, Trump, we know, has an interest in that area. So.
Yes, he does.
Well, Andy Borowitz, it's going to be an interesting year. 2024. We need a lot of humor, Andy Borowitz.
Yeah, well,
We're counting on you.
Well, you'll get it from the Borowitz report, and I'm going to come back in a few weeks to give some very exciting news about the Borowitz report.
You are?
And where it's going. Yes, I am.
On our show?
Good.
On your show, if you'll have me.
We'll have you.
I would like to, because there's a big announcement coming. I want to break the news here.
Could you one time you come bring a real journalist with you? Is that possible? Or
For example, Olivia Gentili.
Olivia Gentili.
At
Olivia
oliviagentili.com.
That would be fun.
By the way.
That would be fun.
She could come.
And
We'd
I
love
also
to have her
want to point out, you wrote a great book, and I'm going to mention it again. It's called Profiles in Ignorance, How America's Politicians Got Dumb and Dumber. It is a riot, as is the Borowitz report. So we need you, Andy,
I'm not
to
going
get
anywhere.
through 2024.
Andy Borowitz, is great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
We've been speaking with writer and satirist Andy Borowitz since 2021. He's been writing the Borowitz Report, which you can find on Facebook, and we're going to get an announcement a little while about what else he's going to be doing, but I want to mention the book again, which is a riot. Profiles in Ignorance, How America's Politicians Got Dumb and Dumber.
By the way,
Thanks
the
a
book
lot.
is fact-based, as he makes the point. It's not like his blog. It is fact-based.
Yes, but it's very entertaining.
Okay, we'll see you with a real journalist next time.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy Borowitz. Up
We
next,
love him.
CNN national politics reporter Eva McKend, who was on the ground in Dixville Notch. I saw her on TV last night in the wee hours. She was at Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, where all 6 voting members of the town gathered at midnight to cast their votes in this primary.
If you supported GBH in the past, thank you. Your generosity has helped keep our community informed and connected right here in Boston. But maybe it's been a while since you last supported GBH, and there's so much we could do that could use your support. GBH is commercial-free, bringing you trusted news and smart conversations because people like you get behind it. So take a moment and renew your membership now at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Simmons. Since 1909, fabrics, furnishings, reupholstery, and custom window treatments. Winter event now in progress. More information about Simmons Design Services and their winter event at simmons.com or at their showroom in Lynn.
And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where MBA and master's degree students can build vital business skills through experience. northeastern.edu/business.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browdy broadcasting live from the Manchester Doubletree Hotel for the New Hampshire primary, which is today. Polls are open in most of the state till 7 and some of the state till 8. We are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. And if you go to youtube.com/GBH News, as we've told you ad nauseum, there's a relatively amusing video of us sort of with survival tips.
That's
for coming into New Hampshire. Here's a little sound from Eva McKend from CNN's reporting last night at midnight from Dixville Notch.
And a vote for Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley has captured all 6 votes here in Dixville Notch. I know from the residents here that she did reach out to the residents in this community and invited to meet with them privately. That seems to have paid off, as every resident in this community has supported Nikki Haley.
By the way, 6 votes, almost the same as the number who voted in the Iowa caucuses. In any case, we're joined now on Zoom by CNN national politics reporter and former congressional correspondent and evening anchor Eva McKend. She was on the ground, as I just said, in Dixville Notch for their tradition of voting as a town at midnight. 6 votes, as you just heard, went to Nikki Haley, a clean sweep. Eva, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Great to be back in New England.
Yeah,
pleasure for us, too.
You know, Eva, I don't think, maybe I did, but if I did, I've forgotten it. I don't think I'd ever seen what actually goes on when they have that big box there up in Dixville Notch, and they... Notch, excuse me. And they go through this whole process very carefully, showing the box is empty. Tell us about it. I was kind of impressed.
Yeah, it is such a unique tradition that has lasted over 60 years. And it was Mr. Tillotson. It was former Balsam's Resort owner. He is now transitioned, Neil Tillotson. And it was him that really wanted his community to be enfranchised and not have to travel an hour outside of this rural ski town to be able to vote. And so he pushed for Dixville Notch to be incorporated, and that allowed these residents to vote. And they have maintained this midnight tradition for over 60 years. It's remarkable. Like, I wish everyone could experience this because there's nothing else like this in the country. It's really, really very special. And you could tell that all of the voters that participated last night or this morning really knew that they were part of something special.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry,
they just took it very seriously. It was kind of almost a patriotic moment there, the way they took the whole thing so seriously.
They did, and they even said like they want the takeaway to be that if they can trek through the wilderness, and it gets very, very dark up there in northern New Hampshire, as the listeners here probably well know. If they can trek through the wilderness, the snow, to get out and participate, it's a big development project going on right now with Balsam's Resort, where the vote took place. The hope is, as the project continues, that more and more people will move to Dixville Notch, and then that will translate to more voters. So they're hoping that it actually goes in the opposite direction.
You know, I find this is, charming sounds like a cheap word, and I don't mean it that way. I find it as wonderful as you're describing it, as Margery does. But I'm embarrassed to say, even though I follow it every, quadrennially, is there a restaurant in town? I mean, what happens in Dixville Notch?
Yeah, what do you do up there in Dixville Notch?
Oh, man, these are questions that need answers. There aren't that many places to eat, and the one place we wanted to eat, unfortunately, last night, it closed at 8 p.m. But fortunately, the inn where we were staying, our host very graciously made me a ham sandwich, so I was not starving by midnight.
That's great. That's actually great.
But yes, there's very little out there, slim pickings.
So why is it called Dixville Notch? Is some connection up there in the hills, or some deal like that? I mean, do you have any idea?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, the inn owner showed me the notch when I was up there, the little break in the mountain. And,
wow.
And that is the reason why it's called that.
And the Balsams is a glorious resort. I've seen pictures of it, right? It's really grandiose and spectacular.
Yeah. There was a fire many years ago, so it's no longer operational. So no one is actually staying at the resort. But there are several people that have moved to that area as this rehabilitation multi-million-dollar effort takes place to get it back online, essentially. And it is just a phenomenal. I mean, as you're driving up, we flew into Portland, Maine, and we did the drive up there about 3 hours from Portland. And it's majestic. Like you literally gasp as you're driving up there. It's so pretty.
Yeah.
So, Eva McKend, we've talked a lot about strategic voting in the 3 days we've been in New Hampshire. We had the two guys who run something called Primary Pivot, which is the organization which is urging undeclared people to vote for Nikki Haley, not because they love Nikki Haley necessarily, but because they want to stop Donald Trump. Was this 6-0 vote for Nikki Haley as far as on the merits, or was this part of this strategic anti-Trump vote that apparently is happening to some degree in New Hampshire?
So the voters that I speak to, they seem to really like her. And it's the fact that she specifically campaigned
that's a big deal.
Seeking their support. She reached out to them, as you played in my report, and wanted to meet with them privately. So she sought out those voters. The former president, he wasn't going up the Dixville Notch or the surrounding areas to court those voters. So that has something to do with it. But also some of those voters up there, they're longtime Republicans. They have historically voted for the former president, and they're just ready for something new. That's the sense that I get. It's not necessarily an anger towards Trump, but just really ready to turn the page.
Well, you did a terrific job up there, Eva, and thanks for giving us a few minutes today to share the experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Take care.
We're thrilled. It was really fun to watch you. I shouldn't say last night. I guess it technically would have been early morning. Anyway, we have been speaking with CNN national politics reporter Eva McKend. Next up, we're going to take some calls.
No, actually, John is on
Oh, is John already here?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, he's here. Forget the calls. That'll be in a little while. Up next, we're going to talk then to CNN's John King, chief national correspondent for CNN. He's behind two great reporting projects. We're going to talk to him about that as well. John King is next.
He's here.
He's here?
Like now. No, I mean
person?
like we're talking to him right now.
Oh, we're talking to him right now.
Hi, John.
Hi,
How
John.
are you? Good to talk to you.
Hey, I'm sorry I can't be there, but it's great to see you and great to hear you.
Oh, that's okay.
Great to talk to you
Jim
too.
said you were here, and I'm
studio
looking around, and I'm saying, I don't see John King.
Close enough, Margery.
Anyway, John King, thank you very much for being with us. So, what do you think? I mean, it's midway through the day. What do you hear? What do you think?
Well, from our reporters on the ground, I know you've been talking to some of them and some other great journalists up there as well. Seems like since 6 a.m., since a lot of the polls opened at 6 a.m., it's been pretty decent turnout. We'll count the votes. I do think, the weather impacted turnout in Iowa. There's always this criticism, right? Why do Iowa and New Hampshire have so much influence so early in the process? Sometimes with the possibility tonight of actually ending the Republican race, not mathematically, but morally, I guess. I don't know what the right word is there. From a momentum perspective. But turnout seems to be okay. From when I was up there last week, and I think you've seen this in the polls, I think that, a lot of people who say this is Haley's best state on the early calendar, that's absolutely true, because you have a more moderate electorate, because undeclared or independents can participate. It's certainly true, but I think people forget sometimes that Trump won New Hampshire in 2016. New Hampshire was his first win on the way to the nomination, and he's got a very strong, committed base there in two parts, I would say. One is his mega base, the people who are out on the side of the roads waving their flags, who have the flags outside their houses, who sometimes have pretty tough and rough, horrible, actually offensive takes on Joe Biden, painted or planted on the flags in their yard. But there's a separate Trump base, the part that fascinated me in my time there, people who have a long list of complaints about how Donald Trump conducts himself, but who are voting for him. I say they're transactional, just like their candidate. They don't like traditional politicians. They don't trust even Trump on some things. But what matters most to them, the border and the economy, and they think Trump will help them, help their bottom line.
John King, we've talked to a lot of people about whether or not Nikki Haley can continue in this race if she isn't really close, and maybe even if she doesn't beat Donald Trump here by a small margin. South Carolina's next. It's her home state. She's trailing, last time I looked, by 29 points to Donald Trump. Can she continue? I know she can. Is it likely she continue if Donald Trump ends up 2 for 2 by the end of the night?
It's a great question. I think she will learn one of the painful lessons Governor DeSantis lost, which is when he invested all in Iowa and he didn't do well. So the people who give you money say, why am I giving you money? You told us this was your plan. It didn't work. New Hampshire does allow independents to come in and vote today. It does have a more moderate Republican, more libertarian Republican electorate. If she can't do well as you move on from here, even to her own home state of South Carolina, the Nevada caucuses come before that. Trump has that one pretty well wired. You have a lot of Republican-only contests. There are some more open primaries down the road, but I think the money is going to dry up if she doesn't. I think she needs to win. Maybe she'll surprise if it's very, very close. I would also say this, Jim, it's not just the money. It's the conversation among Republicans, who many of whom I believe are fighting the last war, fighting a war that's already lost. They're fighting ideologically against Donald Trump. We're the party that stands up to Vladimir Putin. We're the party that shouldn't run up all that debt like Donald Trump did. That Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. Donald Trump is not ideological. He's much more transactional. He's much more of a movement than a continuing ideology from the past. And I think if you're going to beat Donald Trump, I think you got to stop saying, we're the party of George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan and Dick Cheney or anybody from the past, and say, okay, this is what Donald Trump has done to our party. We need to convince people on those issues that matter most to them, that we can actually, and DeSantis tried this to a degree, but we will deal with the border. We will give you a vibrant economy, but we won't give you all the chaos. But no one's been able to do that. DeSantis was the only one who sort of tried that, and he failed miserably. And now he goes home to Florida weaker. Haley, to me, is still fighting, the fight Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz fought last time, that you're not a Republican. He won last time. He was president for 4 years. He won convincingly in Iowa. In many ways, I just think they're fighting the wrong war.
Talking to John King from CNN. After we talk to John, we're going to take some of your calls at 877-301-8970. So if you choose, you can line up now.
So, John, we were talking about the reporting projects you've done all over the map and the battleground. What'd you learn? What are the big takeaways? I hate the word takeaways, but sometimes it works.
So far.
Yeah, the big takeaways from what you've learned so far in your reporting.
The town I work in, and New York, and I think even to a degree Hollywood, you'll hear from a lot of blue-collar Republicans. They don't like the elitists. They don't like the people. That people do think that we don't respect. One of the guys I learned a lot from was up in Thornton, New Hampshire, a town of about 2,700 people. Devin McIver's his name. He let me drive his front-end loader. He let me drive construction equipment. So he's a cool guy forever. Have you ever gone to work saying, I want the president to give my boss a tax cut? That's what Devin McIver thinks. And why does he think that? He says if his boss gets a tax cut, he might get a raise. He makes $40,000 a year. He might get a modest raise. Plus, the boss will be able to buy more modern, safer equipment. A lot of people in Washington say these dumb Trump voters, or they're only high school educated. These are really hardworking, great people. They're great people. There's a lot of Dorchester in New Hampshire. That's one of the things I learned. Andrew Konchak is this commercial fisherman. When Trump was up there the other day in Portsmouth, he mentioned fishermen. He singled out fishermen about how tough they are, how tough their job is. And he also said he was going to change the regulations to make their jobs easier. Have you heard any other candidate talk about that in specificity? So Andrew Konchak can't stand some of the Trump chaos, right? Thinks it's crazy, thinks he's rude, said sometimes he's ignorant. Guess what? He voted for Donald Trump today, sent me a video of him wearing a funny hat with Trump hair on it because he thinks Trump is the only candidate who's going to save his job. It's a transaction. It's not a big ideological statement about the future of the Republican Party. It's a vote by a blue-collar guy who wants to keep his job. And of all the candidates running for president, only Trump talks about it in specifics. So it works for Trump. Everyone I know, people they start ripping their hair out when you say Trump is doing something right. My take on this is if you want to beat Donald Trump, you better learn from how he makes direct personal connections to people who think, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the other thing, but I care about this, and he's going to help me there.
John, for the people you've talked to, I know it's not a scientific sample, who say he's going to help me there, what do they say when you ask them, when you do, about what happens if the Donald Trump they have to vote for in November is a convicted felon?
So that again, a lot of people think Trump supporters are blindly loyal, and some are. You know, who cares if he's convicted? He can be president if he's convicted. Devin McIver just shrugged and he said, "Well, then I guess he won't be president." Right? He says there's a process to deal with all that. So yes, there are Trump voters who say deep state, Biden somehow got Trump indicted. You know, the system is rigged. There's a decent slice of Trump support that lives in his parallel universe, but there are a whole lot of other people. And I think this is really critical, who are so disaffected, so disillusioned with traditional politicians that they just, who will give me something? And they're up at 5 in the morning to go to work, and they're working hard. So they're not like us. They don't see the 5 a.m. tweets or all the social media stuff. They don't have time for it. They're too busy in their lives. And so they're willing to take that chaos. Even though they don't like it, they find it unpresidential. In Devin McIver's case, he said, you know, we have other branches of government that will sort of keep Donald Trump, guardrails to keep Donald Trump. You know, that's an open question after something like January 6th. So you do kind of push back a little bit when you get to that point with them. But the blue collar base of Trump, especially, I know the jobs numbers in New Hampshire are better. I know the inflation numbers are better now than they were a year ago. But just think about it. If you're making $40,000 a year, and you have 6% inflation, which was 2022, that means you can't save money. That means you're staying in your old car. That means you can't take your kids down to Fenway, right? I remember growing up when my dad couldn't do things the other people in the neighborhood were doing for us, and just how it just affects your mood, right? You just, or if they can take you to the amusement park, spend $20 to let you ride on the bumper cars, then your dad's a superhero on those days. The people who couldn't do that in 2022 remember, and it's not fair to blame Joe Biden for that, but he was the guy who was in charge when that happened, and they have these nostalgic memories for the pre-COVID Trump economy, and they say, I want that back.
Yeah, I having grown up, in covered New Bedford, one of the things that I don't get about the fishermen is that maybe they don't care about their children or their grandchildren. That's ridiculous. Of course they care about the children or the grandchildren. People going into a tradition of business as they did in New Bedford for years. There's not going to be the fish to fish if we don't do something about the climate. And, right. And it's sort of ironic. Fishing is one of the most dangerous jobs there is, but it's... Donald Trump is a climate change denier, and the fishermen's lives are going to be worse and worse, I think, because of, as we know, the lobsters are moving north and everything is changing in the fishing market. But on the other hand, John, I often wonder why the Democrats, when they talk about, the economy is good and low unemployment, inflation's coming down and stuff, even though the federal government does not do that much about housing, they do a lot. They built all the public housing many years ago. Why Joe Biden doesn't talk about the things that are killing people, which is housing, child care. He does talk a lot about student loans for college, but those meat and potato things that matter, because when Trump could give people tax cuts, he didn't give them to the fishermen making $40,000. He gave them to millionaires and billionaires.
Margery, you just talked about what I think is the defining challenge for the Democrats going forward, because all the perfect people raise your hands, right? There are none. They exist. There are a few out there who probably think they exist, but they don't exist. But from my reporting in New Hampshire over the last 5 months, but also every other stop we've had, including with very committed Democrats who get tears in their eyes about how grateful they are that Joe Biden kicked Donald Trump out of the White House, they don't see their president. They don't hear from their president. They view him as an absentee president at a time when they want a North Star, and they want to see he's trying on the economy. He's trying on artificial intelligence. He's trying on all these things that trouble them and worry them. And I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying the Biden administration is not active on all of those fronts, but they don't see their president with his hands on the tiller, his hands on the wheel. They don't see him in their community. And so you may not like Trump, but there he is. And he's talking about the issues you care about. And you get this time and time again. Where is the president?
Hey, John King, before you go, can we end on what I think was a beautiful up note? I was watching this short video that features you and people counting votes in Iowa. And the title of this was, "Forgive me," and this is John speaking, "Forgive me for editorializing about the vote counting in Iowa." And it's a beautiful 45 seconds, which is pretty typical of you, I should say, John King, and who you celebrate. Tell people what you had to say.
Well, what I said was, watch this. And Donald Trump is a Republican governor, runs Iowa. She endorsed Ron DeSantis. They counted the votes. Donald Trump won big. You didn't hear him complain, did you? You didn't hear him complain. If he wins tonight, see if he complains. Donald Trump only complains when he loses. right? There are wonderful, hardworking people who we saw in Iowa. We saw a woman who was running one caucus site who has a DeSantis sweater on, who disqualified a DeSantis vote because it didn't have the right stamp on the back. Right? If she could have said, oh, we're going to count it, or, oh, it's close enough. She said it doesn't meet the test, and she set it aside. And there were people there for Haley and for Trump and everybody else, all the other candidates. There are wonderful human beings who are the building blocks of our democracy. And they were Republicans in Iowa mostly last week. You'll have the local people in New Hampshire doing it tonight. And yes, then the calendar may move on, and they might be Democrats in Michigan or Democratic-run administration. These are good, honest people. And that's the miracle of democracy. We get to watch it happen. People counting votes. Those people in Iowa are volunteers. The people who do it in New Hampshire, if they work for the town clerk, they're getting, those are blue collar jobs. They don't get paid a lot of money. Celebrate them. Do not demonize them. And guess what? They're doing their best, and they're telling the truth, and they're not cheating and rigging the system.
How late do you think you're going to be up tonight, John King?
Well, I'll be here till at least 1 a.m. The question is, how long does the story last? Are we talking about a competitive Republican race going forward, or are we talking about Donald Trump's grip on the Republican Party and what that means going into the general election? I think it's a little too early to get there, but we always talk about the map, the 4 or 5 or 6 states that have settled the last 2 presidential elections. At this moment, because of economic anxiety in the country, despite good economic numbers, I think the map's expanding. Hillary Clinton just barely won New Hampshire. Joe Biden won it by a more healthy margin. I would put New Hampshire on your list of states that are likely to be competitive in November based on everything we see today. Can the president turn that around? Sure he can. Will he turn that around? I think that is the giant question facing not only New Hampshire, but go through the battlegrounds across the country.
We're going to be watching you all night tonight, John King.
John,
thanks for your time on what I know is a really busy day.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't see you in person up there.
Yep. No, thank you very much. I was very disappointed. I was looking around. I didn't see him. But
where is that
great
guy?
To talk to him on the phone, John. Thank you very much for being with us. We've been speaking with CNN's chief national correspondent, John King, behind 2 great reporting projects this election cycle, all over the map and the battleground, and we thank him very much. Up next, we're opening the lines and text to you at 877-301-8970. We're going to talk to you until we talk to John Davidson later toward the end of the show. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from Manchester, New Hampshire, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the Oscar nominations are out. We look at the snubs and surprises. Then State Auditor Diana DiZoglio turns to singing to make her voice heard on Beacon Hill. We'll dive into her artistic process and hear some of her greatest hits along the way. Finally, a preview of Robert Burns Day. British Consul General Peter Abbott joins us for the ultimate explainer. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And National Grid, providing access to electric heat pumps, which offer heating and cooling for businesses of all sizes to help them achieve their sustainability goals. You can learn more about heat pump technology at ngrid.com/future. And Cambridge Savings Bank, where they are committed to your financial well-being, and community is at the core of everything they do. Cambridge Savings Bank, always you. More at cambridgesavings.com, member FDIC.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery and Jim Browdy broadcasting live from the Manchester Doubletree for the New Hampshire primary today. Only a little less than 30 minutes left. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and we've been shamelessly urging you to go see the video we made the other day. It's now on youtube.com/GBH News. It's hard to describe. It basically talks about how you should come to New Hampshire, the survival guide, and then the humiliating experience Margery suffered through, though she is totally all right.
That's right.
In a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by one of our favorites, John Davidson, the owner of Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire. I think he's calling us, though, from somewhere in Mexico or whatever. But first, we're going to take some phone calls for a few. 877-301-8970.
Charles from Roxbury, you are first. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Charles.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a little bit of a pushback on your recent discussion with John from CNN.
Yep.
He indicated that there's a depth of anger from the blue-collar worker and spurred on by comments and promises from Donald Trump. A little bit of a pushback there is in terms of their financial situation, minimum wages have been rising dramatically over the past 2 or 3 years. Cost of living increases now exceed inflation. And in terms of their retirement plans, the markets, both Dow Jones and S&P, are
Record
at all-time highs. People are traveling in record numbers, and that's not just elite, well-to-do people. So there's money to be spent by these supposedly, angry, impoverished families. So I think, unfortunately, the loudest voices, often a very small minority, are probably convincing people not as badly off to believe they are as badly off, and therefore supporting.
Yeah, but Charles,
some of Trump's.
You're in Roxbury, where you've seen prices go through the roof for houses. I mean, I think that's one of the big issues that I wish Joe Biden would talk about is the cost of housing, and it's not just Boston. I mean, Boston is one of the worst places in the country, New York and the big cities. But I mean, when you're 30 years old and you have to move out of Massachusetts because you can't pay the rent, you can't afford a house, you can't pay your student loans, it doesn't look so good to you. You know what I mean, Charles?
Oh, I understand that. I'm actually from Duxbury, not Roxbury, in the prices.
Oh, Duxbury.
Sorry, our
okay.
apologies.
But, that's quite all right. I hear you, Margery, but on the other hand, I think if you look at the country as a total landscape, housing issues in other states are not as dramatically high as they are in the Northeast. And a lot of the Trump anger is being generated outside of New England, but it is permeating places inside of certain, towns and states where they aren't just as badly off as Trump is indicating they are. And that's my point.
Well, the other thing, Charles, that I assume you'd agree with, which doesn't deal with the merits, it deals with the communication vehicle. Trump talks about his position about how horrible the economy is much more relentlessly than Joe Biden talks about what he has fixed. Would you not agree? I mean, we talked to Jen Psaki about this earlier today.
Or the absentee president that Biden was, John Kim was talking about.
Quickly, Charles.
No,
let him respond.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, quickly.
I completely agree with you on Biden, and unfortunately, he does not know how to unobfuscate what Trump is so brilliantly obfuscated, and that's too bad. I wish
Charles,
he would.
that was a great
So I
call.
agree with you.
Thank you for making it. We really appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Remember the story of the boy who cried wolf? The anti-Trump side has been shouting about Trump bringing the end time since the Billy Bush tape dropped. Now they're tuning it out as noise. That's from Art from West Bridgewater. Here's Patty from Manchester. Shame on Governor Sununu. He thinks Trump is dangerous, but has said he will vote for him if he's the nominee. Nikki Haley said the same. Seems there's nothing Trump can do that would be a step too far. It's totally mixed messaging, irresponsible and dangerous message from our governor.
I've mentioned that about 300 times on the show in the 3 days we've been here, that not just Sununu, who has been very outspoken in his criticism of Trump, but Nikki Haley, who's been somewhat outspoken, not terribly, in her criticism of Trump, they both said they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Doesn't that mute their whole argument for why Nikki Haley is the alternative? If they say, I'm fine with Trump, he's not my first choice, but of course I'll vote for him.
I think you can't say you're going to vote for a guy who said he could be a dictator on one day when he first comes into office. Say he's going to go after the vermin, so-called, in the United States of America, go after media people, politicians he doesn't like, literally go after them, have the Department of Justice go after them.
Who's been found liable for sexual abuse, for fraud, is charged with
Talking
91
about
felonies.
Internment camps for people who are in the country illegally. All these crazy authoritarian things. I mean, there will not be the guardrails around him the second time around. And the other thing is, if you are worried about the climate, I mean, I hate to think of what he will do if he becomes the President of the United States. The progress we've made will go backwards, and we are out of time. Anyway, let's go to Molly in West Newbury.
Hi, Molly. Welcome.
Hi there. How are you?
We're good, thank you.
You're really doing a tough job up there in New Hampshire. We thank you so much for reporting.
We're thankful to be here.
I'm
Thanks.
just going to reiterate what you just said. What you just said about Nikki Haley and Ramaswamy and Sununu saying all the things they want to say about Trump, but then towing the line and getting right behind. It really is, instead of for country, it's for party. And it's very disgusting that the loyalty that they follow. But a really great interview, and is Heather Cox Richardson, which I know you speak of her often. She had a really great interview with Kara Swisher, who you talk of as well. And it's a great listen if anyone wants to listen onto her podcast. But so I'm just going to repeat what you said, is that it's despicable that these people can say what they say about Trump, but then say they'll stand right in line with him. So,
by the way, speaking of despicable positions, Carrie Lake just walked by right outside our studio. She's obviously here campaigning.
I'm sorry that you had to witness that.
For Republican candidate for governor of Arizona. She lost, and she is apparently running for the United States Senate seat come the fall. Molly, thank you much for the call. 877-301-8970.
Let's go to Chris in Gloucester. Thank you for calling, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, I just read that Trump's claiming massive voter fraud in Dixville Notch.
That's a good one. I wish I had thought of that. Go ahead.
The paper bag they used to collect the ballots had a hole in the bottom that only people who voted for him would slip through.
Exactly.
Okay. Big controversy. I think I'll jump around a little bit here. I think this primary is not. It's kind of skewed because people can cross over and vote, and Biden's. I think it's not going to mean that much. I will leave you with I'm optimistic. I saw Whitmore on TV Sunday, and I just reinforced that Governor Whitmore was on there.
Yeah, from Michigan. Yep.
And I think the pro-choice women's reproductive rights is going to be the ace in the hole for the Dems, and I think it could. She was very impressive, and I think she'll help Biden carry Michigan, which will be a big feather in his cap.
You know, by the way, we meant to say this yesterday. I can't remember who the guest was where we intended to bring it up. There are a bunch of states,
8 or 9,
where the Democrats are either
9.
have put abortion rights questions on the ballot or intend to put them on the ballot, sort of like what George W. did in his re-election, I think, when they put all these constitutional amendments around same-sex marriage, which at that time was not as popular as it is now.
Yeah.
And that helped him in those states. So the Democrats are trying to do the same thing with abortion questions.
You know, it really got me going when Nikki Haley said, well, you know, we just need to be more compassionate toward these women. I mean, thank you very much, Governor Haley or Ambassador Haley, but compassion, I think, is not what they need. The number one reason for abortion is poverty, and the programs that would help ameliorate that, she is not behind. So that, to me, kind of is a bunch of baloney. Jill from Medford, thank you for calling.
Oh, thank you. My thought is Nikki Haley's current commercial on TV says that both Biden and Trump are disliked because they're consumed by chaos, negativity, and grievances from the past, which leads me to believe that she already believes that voters have been convinced of that, which means that the propaganda from the Republican Party is so strong that somehow people have been convinced that Biden is Trump or equal to Trump.
Well,
and
she does.
You know,
I haven't seen that commercial, but every time she has an opportunity,
it's
including
all over the place.
On CNN, the town hall the other night, she was talking about how they're both 80-year-olds. Obviously, Trump is not yet 80, and they're both chaos machines. And so she has tried, I think, fairly skillfully, even if it's disingenuous, to group Trump's flaws with Joe Biden's. And I thought she was doing better with it than the polling suggests. But that's where it is. Jill, thank you very much for the call.
But I think Jill's point, which is a great point, is that right-wing media is, I think, very much more persuasive. I mean, Fox News has got the big ratings. Sinclair Broadcasting is all across the country. They're from a very conservative perspective.
Well, they're advocacy media.
AM radio, that's all across the country, is often very conservative. So, you know, and I was mentioning this piece in the New Republic by Michael Tomasky that was talking about Trump losing his marbles, but he was basically saying that the press is doing a bad job at fighting back against some of the claims from conservative media.
I would agree with that. Stay on the line if you are calling or, texting. You don't have to stay on the line. We're going to get back to your calls in a minute. But first, we're joined by New Hampshire heartthrob, one of our faves, the owner of Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire. That, of course, would be John Davidson, even though my understanding is he's not in Sandwich, but he's on a boat somewhere off the coast of Mexico. Is that right, John?
I am. Can you hear me okay, Jim?
Yeah, where are you? Where are you?
I'm in La Paz, Mexico, in Baja Sur, it's the southern Baja. I live in Sandwich. That's where I have Club Sandwich, my barn that I sing in, and that's 6 months of the year. But 6 months I live here where my son lives with his family in La Paz, Mexico. It's about 2.5 hours north of Cabo, and I hate to tell you what the temperature here is 80. Okay, I'm
if you
sorry
hate to tell
about
us,
that.
don't tell us. How about that?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
But I wanted to tell you that.
Well, you'd be happy to know that when we were standing outside interviewing people going into the Trump rally of the night, I think the temperature was about 15. That particular juncture.
I know. That's why I told you. I just wanted to rub it in. But I'm missing some of the excitement there, and you're in Concord, one of my favorite cities.
We're in Manchester. Close enough.
Close enough.
Manchester.
Oh, you're in Manchester. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing, though.
Yeah, same thing.
I don't know where I am.
John Davidson, did you vote absentee or something? I hope.
No, I didn't. Because
Why?
I thought falsely that this was all about the Republicans. I thought that Biden wasn't on the ballot. I know you can write his name in now, and that's great. But I missed that. I just thought this time that it was just about the Republicans, and I missed that. Next year, of course, I'll get an absentee ballot in September when I come down here. But yeah, no, I can't from here.
What do you do every day in La Paz on a boat? I mean, what do you do?
Looks at the waves and the sunset and the sunrise.
Is that what you do? What is it?
I'm here by myself, and I go cruising. I never cruise by myself. I have a deckhand that comes with me, and just because a lot of people are found in the water next to their boat. I work on the boat. I write songs. Every year I write 3 or 4 new pieces. I got 3 or 4 new pieces of comedy and romantic songs for the club. I open the end of June, and I like to change it up each year and put new stuff in. So, and I'm afraid I've been watching a lot of news. I just can't get away from the news. I have Starlink here, so I have Netflix. I watch movies at night, and this Starlink thing has changed boating. Because we can go out cruising, and I could have done this from a cove up the coast. I'm on Starlink right now talking to you. Is the picture okay? Oh,
you're
you're
supporting Elon Musk by being part of Starlink?
I know.
Are you aware of that?
I know that. I'm sorry for that.
I bought a Tesla, so I'm just as bad as you are. Don't worry about it. Hey, so John,
the technology is amazing. What?
So, John, years ago, when you were in Greater Boston with me, incredibly, I think you ad-libbed it, sang a song dedicated to me, which was really one of the honors of my life. My understanding is you have a song about voting, not about a particular candidate, but about voting you're going to share with our listeners. Is that true, John Davidson?
Yeah, it's not my song. There's so much talent in New Hampshire, especially in the Sandwich area. My good buddy Tom Bartlett wrote this song, and I sing it every 4 years, around every 2 years if it's the midterm. It's called "You Can't Get There From Here." It's written by Tom Bartlett, and you can go to the internet and look it up. I just love what it says. Basically, it's saying just vote, just be a part of it. Tom Bartlett's song. You can't get there from here. At least that's what they say. You can't get there from here if you don't know the way. You can climb the mountain, swim the ocean, sail across the stars. You can't get there from here if you don't know where you are. Once there was a time you were younger than today, older than tomorrow, nothing in your way. But you stood there by the window and you watched the seasons turn. All you got is memories as you watch the fire burn. You can't get there from here. At least that's what they say. You can't get there from here if you don't know the way. You can climb the mountain, swim the ocean, sail across the sky. You can't get there from here if you don't know where you are. Once upon a time, we were gonna change the world. We all stood up for freedom while the winds of history swirled. But somehow something changed. We got lost along the way. Now it seems there's no one left who can remember that day. You can't get there from here. At least that's what they say. You can't get there from here. If you don't know the way, you can climb the mountain, swim the ocean, sail across the stars. You can't get there from here. You don't know where you are.
John Davidson, you were a gem. You really, even though you're in La Paz.
I go. The last verse. The last verse is great.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah. You were so excited to take it. You may think it's over, that your time has come and gone. Nothing you can do to change this world we're on. But in the darkest hour, your light can still shine through. All it takes is just one voice whispering the truth. You can get there from here. Certain what I say. You can get there from here. I think you know the way. You can climb the mountains, swim the ocean, sail across the stars. You can't get there. You can't get there from here. It isn't very far. You can get there from here. You know who you are. All you gotta do is vote.
Hey, John Davidson, we love you. If you want to go to Club Sandwich starting June 28th, you go to johndavidson.com. I'm sure we'll see you in a few months. Enjoy Mexico, La Paz, and we'll talk to you soon. The great John Davidson singing the song.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate. Have a great winter down there in the beautiful oceanside place you're at. We're going to keep
Wait to get back to New Hampshire. I'll be back.
Okay,
We'll be here.
We're going to keep the phone lines open for the rest of the show. 877-301-8970. If you have anything you'd like to say about what's going on up here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Let's start with Bob, who is from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We're in Manchester,
That's
actually.
close enough, Margery.
He
thinks we're in Concord. You think we're in Portsmouth.
I saw Bob's name, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I suddenly lost track of where I am.
We don't know where you are, Bob, but we're really glad you're on the show. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Bob.
God bless you guys. Long time listener, first time caller.
Thank you.
Love that.
I'm just concerned with what's transpiring in America today. We've got a gentleman who's been charged with rape. He made tax cuts that helped drive an $8 trillion debt. Social Security is 10 years away from bankruptcy. We're currently in the middle of floods and droughts going forward, given what's transpiring with the climate. And going forward, our children are going to have trouble finding good, clean, drinkable water, affordable food, and breathable air. And I got to tell you, it upsets me to see where this country is going. And I'm also worried now that if Trump doesn't win, he'll end up kicking off a civil war.
Well, you very well could. There's virtually not one word that you said that I disagree with, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, thank you.
I hope we can convince a lot of people that you speak the truth. Bob, thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Where are we again?
We are in Manchester, New Hampshire.
We're not in Portsmouth.
Bob was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
We in Concord?
I am in Manchester. Sometimes it's, who am I and why am I here, Jim? I think I'm in Manchester.
How about
I'm not
Hanover,
sure.
where Andy Borowitz lives?
That's right.
Sounds like a liberal enclave.
A liberal bubble. That's what he says. Eddie from Rentham, thank you for calling.
Hello, Eddie.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something about independent candidates because I just feel like Biden and Trump, I feel like they're both just incompetent to be president. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a guy that I just found out about last June. I'm a small farmer, and he's an advocate for small farmers.
Yeah.
And I really think this guy, he's the most successful environmental lawyer in the country. He made Monsanto pay $2 billion. He started the biggest water protection agency in the world called Riverkeepers. He saved the Hudson River. One caller talked about housing prices. That's going to be one of his main goals is to fix that. He's going to give everybody a 3% interest rate, basically. He's going to get the federal government to give everybody. He wants to get people in their 20s and 30s into houses.
How do you feel about his? How do you feel about his positions about vaccines? How do you feel about some comments he made that most people felt were anti-Semitic? How do you feel about that?
I never heard anything that he said that was anti-Semitic. And as far as vaccine, he's not anti-vax. He's skeptical, and he just wants good science. I mean, all his children are vaccinated.
Eddie,
I'm truly inspired by this guy. I think he's
what I would do,
amazing.
Eddie, if I were Eddie, I was going to say what I would do is a look at his family, and the family have written out to talk about their upsetness with their brother and his positions, and he did do a lot of good stuff for the environment. I think he's evolved. They're concerned about his state of mind, and when your brothers and sisters are writing public letters about that, that's not a good sign. I look at that too when you're making your decision. But thank you.
By the way, just so you know, Eddie, we've invited him on the show. I've had him on Greater Boston before. I think we've had him on the radio.
We have.
He is more than welcome here, and then you can hear from him himself explaining how his anti-vaccine positions are not anti-vaccine. But Eddie, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it.
Let us go to Elaine in New Hampshire. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Elaine.
Hi, you guys. I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My point is, I did vote, and unfortunately, they changed my district, so I had to drive to another one.
Oh.
To which I was not happy. But, I voted for Haley for a lot of reasons.
What are they?
And, I just can't. I am not a. I don't want to see any more old white men in the Oval Office.
On either side. On either side.
Nope.
So that was really a vote for Haley as
correct,
opposed
sir.
to an anti-Trump vote. Well, I don't think you're alone. I think there are a lot of people who feel that way, and a generational argument.
And I'm just going to.
You go ahead.
And I'm going to say one thing before you can hang up when I'm
We're
done.
not going to hang up.
I'm really tired of people like John King trying to write off Nikki Haley. I'm done with it. I want them to stop it. I want them to stop predicting and let us vote. That's all I want.
I hear you.
all I want.
Elaine, all he is doing is relating what polling is showing. He's not saying personally what his position is. His position, he is reflecting what the polling from, for example, UNH and from Suffolk and Boston is, which shows that Trump is increasing your lead. But we respect your position, Elaine. Thanks for calling. By the way, here's another thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said about Fauci. He's done a lot of things that I think are really bad for humanity. I think he's genuinely a bad human being. I would argue that Fauci is probably responsible for the saving of more lives in this country over the last few years than anybody in America.
Well, he's a conspiracy theorist, and his family, I mean, like I said, when your brothers and sisters are writing letters to newspapers saying my brother is not in a good frame of mind, that, like I said, it's not a good sign. People can look up.
His wife, who's supposedly quite a liberal, by the way, from Curb Your Enthusiasm, the other day apparently embraced a lot of his positions that you and I find to be troubling.
I know, she's hanging, she's well, he's her husband, and I guess that's okay with her. Colin in Foxborough, thank you for calling.
Hey, Colin. Colin?
Oh,
Hello?
I don't know, we may have lost.
Hi.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Colin.
Are you Colin?
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I'm Tom in Foxborough.
Tom.
Oh, Tom. Sorry, Tom.
We're going to try to get one name right before the show's over, or one town. Tom,
Go ahead,
welcome to the show. How
Tom
are
in
you?
Foxborough. What do you think?
We are pathetic. Go ahead.
I love you guys, number one.
Thanks. Thank you.
And I think listening to John King's interview, talking about hardworking people making $40,000 a year up in New Hampshire, and that kind of thing never gets followed up. And my follow-up would be the minimum wage in New Hampshire is $7 and change an hour.
It's the federal minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it tied to the federal minimum
Well, that's
wage?
what they got. Well, doesn't matter. It's federally set, but that's the law in New Hampshire.
I
for
understand. I'm
minimum
not
wage.
defending it. You're right.
Okay. And I would think that before people drag Trump into it, they ought to do something on their own and fix the problem at home. That's just too low a floor to expect to be making decent money, even if you're a skilled laborer.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well, Massachusetts, we're up to what? What are we up to now, Massachusetts?
I think we're either at 15 or about to hit 15.
I mean, I think there is some movement around the country, Tom, as you know, right, to increase the minimum wage because it's kind of ridiculous. You can't get by at $7.
And on the federal level, a lot of states are doing it like we did in Massachusetts. Tom, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. Just a few more minutes left. We are back in Brighton tomorrow, and obviously we'll report on what happens tonight and give you a little bit of an analysis and get yours. Eric in Bedford, hey.
Hello.
Hello to you.
I want to, first of all, thank you to. I'm doing all right. I am back down in Massachusetts, but I was up in Manchester yesterday.
Yep.
On the front lines with you guys, and I think there's a reason why that hotel is situated next to the Merrimack, because they must divert it to cool off all the high-powered energy going on there.
Well, unfortunately, there's not enough high-powered energy, but thanks. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, to me, it was interesting. I was talking to some people in the streets, just average Joes and ladies, and there's a lot of people that do not have the answer yet. And it's, I got the sense from the really high-powered media people, which I really appreciate. You can tell they're on the front line. A lot of them trying to save democracy, but there just is not the solution that's being presented to the people that is inspiring people and moving people forward in a way that's going to bring us a stronger, more robust
Eric, when you
republic.
say no, the solution hasn't been presented, do you mean the individual who should next lead our country? Is that your point?
Well, I think, as you know, and sort of behind the scenes, there's a huge infrastructure that's necessary to make something happen. Yes, I think that leader has not been identified or is not at least publicly out there running yet, but also the infrastructure to support that person is not there. It appears that both parties are still locked in something that's not a winning solution.
Are you in Bedford, New Hampshire?
Just because of personal safety reasons, I'll disclose that kind of stuff as I go forward. But it goes Eric from Bedford, and I'm currently calling from another location.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Wish you a lot of safety. Thank you very much for the call.
We squeeze in one more real quick.
Yeah.
Let's go to John.
Hey,
John Gardner, our
30
buddy.
seconds, John.
You don't have much time, John, but what's up?
Oh, I don't have enough time. Margery, I was heading up there with a 6-by-8-foot butterfly to put on the glass, but I got waylaid. I wanted to protect you.
Thank you, John.
You guys, it was nice bringing in some of your producers, Zesty Zoe and More Than Able Aiden. We're waiting to see naturally the nice Nicole and ever so helpful Hannah.
Yeah.
But I'm running out of time. But messaging, Jim, messaging. It's almost too late now for the Dems because the right wing has been telling people that the economy sucks and you're having a hard time, and it's almost baked into the cake. But it's that messaging that the right wing is so good at.